Hi everyone, welcome to Ethernal Realms and welcome to this eclipse deep dive. In the month of October, we have two eclipses. One is a solar eclipse, one is a lunar eclipse. They always occur in pairs, and usually they are spread out in a 2-week period, and we generally get one of those in a different month and the other one falls in the next month. But in this case, we are getting both of them in the month of October, so it's going to be jam-packed with fateful events, certain changes and twists and turns as well that you might experience in the specific houses that these eclipses are occurring for you. We will get into the zodiac specific reading a little bit down the line. The timestamps are also there in the comments, so if you want you can skip ahead, but of course I would recommend that you read what this energy is about, because there might be multiple ways that you can apply what is already ongoing, and the examples and the specific interpretations that I offer may not be fully comprehensive because it's still a general read. All right. Let's start with the first eclipse. We have a Libra solar eclipse. So this is a time of the new moon. This is occurring on the 14th of October at 21 degrees. So if you have any planets, any midheaven, or your IC, anything in this sign at this degree, or let's say actually the whole of Libra is going to be affected, honestly, but it just gets a lot more concentrated the closer you are to this number. If you don't have your chart, you can always generate a free one. There are many different sources online and you can pick one that works for you. But yes, I've already discussed that in how to read your birth chart a video. If you want, you can check it out. So I'm just going to get started here with what I'm thinking about this. First of all, it's important to note that the South Node is in Libra at this time, okay? So wherever the South Node is, we get our resources, we get our help, but we also need to release certain things there, because either we've been over-exercising that area, or we have been, just life has kind of shown us different ways of just focusing on that, or we just have the tendency to keep on going in a certain direction. Libra is a cardinal sign, so once it sets its focus, it's like ongoing. It wants to keep on going in that specific direction and can get a little bit tunnel vision if it is in the shadow side. So with eclipses and the South Node over here, what comes up is, okay, this is where, this something is not working. This relationship is not working, or this way of communicating with someone is not doing you any favors. Perhaps there are certain, skills that need to be up-leveled as well. And Libra is going to help you do these things by first informing you what needs to let go, right? So this doesn't mean that we leave our relationships, okay? This, I suppose, is a common way to exaggerate what this energy is talking about. It doesn't mean we break up with everybody necessarily. Although if you are stuck in a toxic situation, yes, you can let go. It would be easier to let go than to hold on, okay? But it's not necessary that if you're in a good relationship or that you have, solid communication with people, that you're all of a sudden not going to have those things, right? Everything tries to find a balance, and by letting go certain things, it is essentially pushing all of us on a collective level to move towards the Aries part of our chart. Now, Aries is a completely different energy compared to Libra. Libra is generally charming, it's diplomatic, it can be, it can gel with just about anybody in any social situations. It prides in communication, or at least it tries to develop its communicative abilities. Its thought process tries to find pros and cons of every situation in order to inform itself from a balanced perspective, and therefore make decisions from a balanced point of view. In the shadow side, it becomes a little bit people-pleasing or indecision. Okay, when there's not enough perspectives, or there's overthinking, self-doubt, any of these things that go on, then Libra switches to the shadow side. Not to worry, everything can be rebalanced, right? So when we focus on the Aries part of the chart, we learn to say no to certain things or certain people. If we are spreading ourselves too thin, we need to be taking a stand and deciding again, what is the purpose? What is the purpose that I'm trying to achieve here? What am I trying to create in my life? I care about others. What about me? Okay, I've been doing all of these duties and whatever for other people. Now, what do I need to do for myself? Now, Aries is also taking charge, taking the initiative, and not dilly-dallying. Aries does not pause and think so much. It just takes action, because at some points in time, just thinking is not going to help anymore. It's just a matter of doing, right? You have the resource, you have the people, or sometimes not even those things, but you still got to do something, right? You still have to power through and move past that initial fear or that initial hurdle, because you know that once you're past that, you will experience great accomplishment, fulfillment, purpose, or bliss. This Aries energy is also quite fiery and passionate, so you're not moving towards something that you hate. Okay, you move towards something you know is going to expand you, but there might be certain fears or waiting for validation or listening to past criticism and so on. The South Node represents our comfort zone. It does not grow us, but it does provide security and comfort. The North Node explains where we can expand and grow. So this is a very, very important thing here, and we are going to experience Libra Aries eclipse for some time, and I probably will rehash this information a little bit each time that I gather some new insights to help you guys out as well in your journey. If you are an Aries or a Libra, you're going to feel this very personally because it affects your first and the seventh house. We'll talk about that in the zodiac specific, but just in general, this would be a very pivotal time for you. Another thing to note is that Mercury is also in the sign of Libra. It's a loose conjunction. It's far off, but it's not as so far off that it doesn't have any influence. Okay, so there is likely going to be conversations, thought processes, analysis, certain travel plans connected with other people, or, meeting long distance relationships or seeing if that is going to work or not. There can be certain contracts, agreements as well that is ongoing, right? There can be certain adjustments being made too, especially since eclipses talk about fateful encounters. So if you feel as though you are collaborating with people that are not like-minded, or that this is a destructive cycle, sometimes, not being like-minded is not the end of the world, right? It's okay. Everyone cannot think the same thing. It's more important to see where the other person is coming from and see what can be done about a specific situation, right? So Mercury in Libra is very adept at perceiving what the other side is trying to say, what they are intending to say, okay? And then it tries to concrete that, all right? It's like, okay, so this is your expectation. Let's make a contract out of it, okay? Or let's make an agreement or make a promise to one another that we're going to go a certain way. So there might be a promise you're making to yourself or someone else that you are going to let go of a certain habit, or that a certain situation is about time that it goes to a close, a culmination, or moves on to the next stage. It can be your roles and responsibilities as well are up-leveling. For example, if you are used to being, let's say, a boyfriend or a girlfriend, that's the dynamic, and later you decide beyond this point that, okay, let's take it up a notch. Let's get married. Let's get engaged, let's move in together. That is going to be a different dynamic, different communication, and it's going to be even more important to understand each other's side of the story. And when I say this does not always apply to romantic situations, like I mentioned, it can be business deals as well and work contracts. Now, Mercury is right opposite Chiron. Chiron is retrograde and is in the sign of Aries, where the North Node is. So Chiron represents our insecurities and fears and where we hold ourselves back. Okay, it's the last hurdle that we usually face. We can make multiple excuses of I'm not motivated enough, or I don't have this, I don't have that. If I had some more support, I could do this and that, right? There can be certain blocks which are more tangible and physical like that, but Chiron represents where we hold ourselves back and we are afraid to face that side of us, okay? Where we're like, maybe I'm not good enough. That's something that is hard hitting, yes? Maybe what I try, I will fail. If you're afraid of failure, that is going to be that insecurity that can come up. Now, because Chiron is retrograde, there is this opportunity to resolve it. When it is direct, there is more of this tendency of how can I carry it? Okay, how can I carry it? How can I cope with it? How can I deal with it? But with Chiron retrograde, it's like, okay, let's do a deep dive and really see what exactly the trouble is, what exactly the insecurity and that wounded part of me is, and what does it need from me right now. Okay, it's sort of like that inner child healing. Got to deep dive, listen to it, sit with it, and kind of understand what it needs at the moment. And as you keep on doing that, it progressively becomes much more manageable. Now, behind the scenes, it's not directly related to this eclipse, but Mars is going to trine with Saturn. Saturn is in Pisces and is retrograde, and Mars is in Scorpio, which it rules. Now, Mars in Scorpio is quite research oriented. It wants to investigate deeply and is quite psychological in that way. It is not satisfied to hear, well, maybe this is the problem. There is no maybe when it comes to Mars. It wants to know, what is it? What is it that stops me from fulfilling my purpose, from feeling more fulfilled in life, from feeling motivated and driven, from connecting intimately with others? How can I form closer bonds with myself and other people and, my passions as well? How can I fulfill the promises that I've made to myself? Mars in Scorpio is in a strong position, which means that it is also helping the Aries part of the chart. Mars rules both Scorpio and Aries, right? So since the Aries part of the chart is, of course, lit up because of that North Node, because of that Chiron, Mars being in that angle, or not angle, but in that zodiac, is going to lend all of these research that it's doing in the backdrop to Aries and be like, look, this is why you hold yourself back. Don't do that, okay? Let's transform it. Let's not keep staying in that same pattern, because guess what? If you keep repeating the same actions, keep repeating the same thoughts and intentions, that's what's going to keep repeating in life itself. Right? So Mars here is not satisfied with how things are at the moment and wants to create some type of transformation, purging, cleansing, and change. And because there is a trine, which is a harmonious aspect with Saturn, Saturn is the planet for structure, stability, and because it's retrograde, it's talking about changing certain routines, restructuring in a way that allows for better stability down the line. Now, Saturn in Pisces, it's quite spiritual. It is also introspective. It's empathetic, compassionate, emotional. So what are certain emotions and subconscious beliefs that we have held on to from the past? Maybe it does not relate to what exactly we are doing at this time, but we feel as though it is, It happens many times, right? When someone else criticizes your work, you are reminded of the time that your parents criticized your work, and the agony that you felt when you were a child kind of comes back, even though the person or the situation you're dealing with at that current moment, in that present moment, is not exactly like the one you experienced when you were a child. So things like that can come up, but in a very healing way. With trines, we talk about resolution. So you know what it is, and you're like, I see what is happening here. And it is true that, this boss or this, mentor over here is not trying to, bring me down or hurt me in any way. So I can take this more constructively, or I can ask them to discuss the topic more constructively, and, figure out a way to create a resolution to this situation. Of course, this doesn't always have to be involving other people. It can be something internal to you as well. You're processing your own feelings, your own thoughts, and you're trying to see what that means for you to move forward. Now, Venus rules this Libra zodiac, right? And Venus is in Virgo at this time. Now, Venus in Virgo, not everyone is a fan of this energy, but it's very subjective in my opinion. Now, Virgo is a mutable sign, so Venus is quite adaptable, agile, and adjusting. It's not at a very specific angle to Libra. It's a neutral influence, but if the ruler is happy, then the zodiac is likely to be happy as well. So while in Virgo, the best ways to express herself, Venus takes on this service-oriented role. She wants to make sure that everything is flowing well, that there is loyalty, devotion, that there is good health and wealth as well. How are you managing your stress? How are you coping your life? Is there good routines and lifestyles? If certain systems are not there that can make your life easier, then Venus is going to help you make your life easier, right? You're still dealing with the relationship stuff, and it does not directly connect, but she's also helping out in different ways that can help you navigate through whatever is happening there. Right? Now, on the shadow side, Venus takes on a perfectionistic role, or it can be overly critical or analytical. All right. Sometimes, for example, you're having a conversation with someone and you're wondering, did they mean what they say? Are they thinking something else? Are they meaning something else? What exactly is it? Let me just scratch under the surface and see what they are meaning. Let me overanalyze this or overthink this. There can be an over preparing for something in case something can go wrong, or, that can happen as well. So watch out for whatever tendency is more natural to you, because Venus can, bring those things up. Not in the sense to aggravate it, because Venus in general is a very benefic planet, no matter where she goes, but in the sense of, hey, see, you deal with this stress. This is where you get stressed. So, all right, we're going to figure out a way to calm ourselves down in this situation, or figure out a way to better deal with our, our schedule, our routines. Let's make this more easy flowing so that we are better able to service others, better coming to service to ourselves. Essentially, she wants to maintain good health of the system, whatever that system is. Now we'll talk about the second eclipse. This is occurring on the 28th of October. It's a full moon lunar eclipse in the sign of Taurus, and it's at 5 degrees. So once again, look around this zodiac. A little bit into Aries is also going to be affected, but yes, mostly all of Taurus, of course, and Scorpio is going to be affected heavily too, because it's right opposite its zodiac. Now, full moons are a little bit more emotional than solar eclipses, okay, which is new moon. Now, the thing with solar eclipses is it's a little bit more dynamic. You might experience more external situations happening, or you want to take more external actions, or it's just generally action-packed, dynamic, and just heated in general. Right? But with lunar eclipses here, it's more contemplative and deep, and you want to nurture yourself more, or you want to figure out a way to best nurture yourself. How can you find comfort and security and a connectedness as well? Now, this full moon, let's see, the moon is going to conjunct loosely. Again, it's not all bunched up together, thankfully, but we do have a loose conjunction with Jupiter, who's retrograde in the sign of Taurus, and that means that the sun is then right opposite Jupiter in Taurus, right? So Jupiter is a benefic planet again. When it is retrograde, it wants to expand the inside. It does not want to keep on adding new things to your life constantly, because it can get a little bit hard to cope at times, right? You can't just keep on growing without making sure that the foundation is still fine, that you are coping well, that you are feeling fulfilled, right? So it's about that inward look, especially paired with that full moon energy, right? You want to see what brings you comfort. How can you create more stability and security in your life? Aries and Libra can be very action packed, right? They're not ones to just sit still and be like, well, I'm just gonna wait here then, right? Meanwhile, Taurus is a fixed sign, which means it wants to create a sense of rootedness. It does not want to keep on going and going and going unless there is a specific purpose and a very good reason to do so. It is all about the momentum. It's about inertia. So it's what are you carrying forward with you in this journey ahead? Now, this is the last Taurus eclipse you're going to get for quite some time. The North Node has moved on already, and this is just that last finishing bit. So yes, Jupiter is looking at what can be expanded inside that is going to help you expand on the outside. Now, this Sun in Scorpio is also loosely conjunct Mars and Mercury. Both of them are in Scorpio, and Mars and Mercury are closely conjunct, okay? This one is a little bit, I can say that it would be a little bit volatile, or at least it would feel like that. Doesn't have to be. Of course, everything has a spectrum. It's an energy. It is what you make of it. But again, evaluate what your general tendencies are. If you're a short-tempered person, for example, this can mean that you have this sudden burst of emotion, or you just want to there can be harsh speech as well, which can deeply hurt someone else, even if that's not what you're going for. Okay, Mars can be representing, aggression, revenge, just manipulative behavior as well, especially when we pair that with Mercury. If you don't have these tendencies, it can be that someone else or some other situation can feel that way. We'll see where Scorpio falls in your chart for you individually, of course, to see what's happening there. But yes, these are certain energies to look out for. There can be certain criticism too. But on the plus side, this talks about heavy passion. Okay, you have high passion here and you have big momentum. Mars wants to create movement, Mercury wants to create movement, but both of them in the sign of Scorpio are all about let's do the research first. Okay, so even in the case of an aggression, let's say, it's best to wait a second, just a second, to see, is it worth it? Is it worth getting into a fight right now with that particular person? Or, is it worth creating a discord or heavily thinking about something when it is not needed in that situation? Sometimes we just can't help it. If that happens, don't be hard on yourself, okay? That there's no good that can come out of that. And let the energy just flow through, because it is an intense time. Sit with it. Or, just do something else that is going to help you channel that energy, meditate a bit, do some self-work. All of these things can really help balance out the energies here. Even doing some workout can really help you. Now, some other things on the plus side, again, deeply investigative and research oriented, like I said. Therefore, your words and the way that you express yourself can have this huge gravitas, okay? You might be in the forefront of certain things, or the work you're doing has huge momentum to move forward and transform your mindset, transform the way that you conduct yourself and your life in general. And like I said, Mars is pretty strong in this house, so it's likely going to take the leadership role when we talk about Mercury and Mars. But Mercury in general is quite agile, so it's not going to resist anything, thankfully. When there is resistance, it just does a little bit more harm than good. So that's where I have more hope that there can be a lot of beneficial things that come out of this. If you have been wanting to move forward in a certain way, but you have been holding back because of fear or some other reason, this can be a time of breakthroughs, in the sense that you will make it happen. Okay, it's not waiting and hoping. No, it's about think about it, visualize it, and make it happen. That's it, right? But it comes from a deeper space. Okay, you need it in some way. It can be a deep need to intimately connect with someone. Okay, you must relate to that person. It is about time, and you must surpass that initial hurdle of, oh my goodness, if I'm vulnerable, what will the other person think of me? Will my power be lost? With Scorpio, we talk about power and control. Right, so there can be certain dynamics. You can even observe other people going through certain power dynamics, and you can see that tells a lot about them, and their behavior. How do others deal with their own stresses, and so on and so forth. There's a lot to be gained if you can observe and tune inwards. Okay, especially because Jupiter is retrograde at this time in the sign of Taurus. Tuning inward, really big stuff. Okay. Now, another thing that's happening, the modern ruler Pluto is in Capricorn, and it has been oscillating back and forth between Capricorn and Aquarius for some time, and it'll keep doing that for a bit, but it is direct. Okay, for quite some time it was retrograde. In this month, it is going direct on the 11th, and it is going to be at a sextile angle to the house of Scorpio. Okay, so Capricorn and Scorpio are at a sextile, which means that there are certain opportunities to be had. If, you reach out to someone, they can help you out with something, or you find some tips online to deal with certain things. And Pluto is the therapist. Let's say it's the biggest transformer and the therapist of the whole, planetary system in astrology. So in the sign of Capricorn, it's like, what are these small little hurdles where we stop ourselves? Where are the practical steps that we can take to create meaningful change in our lives? In the sign of Capricorn, it does not want to overhaul everything all in one go, which can come off a little bit too intense at times, especially for an intense planet. So it's kind of nice because we can take small, steady action and we can see large, meaningful differences. Okay, so once again, it depends on where Capricorn is in your chart. That's where you can get certain help, and also where Scorpio is in your chart, because these fateful events connected to Scorpio are also going to bring in opportunities to your Capricornian side of your chart. Okay, so biggest message here is just to tune in and make sure that you're channeling that energy in a way that you decide. This is where free will comes in, right? When there is the the opportunity to have it go either one way or the other. That's when free will comes in. That's when you decide, and that's how you take the power back. Okay, so let's get into the zodiac specific reading now and delve into where each of these things fall in your chart. So Aries, let's talk about these eclipses for you. The first one is going to be quite pivotal for you. There can be certain relationship patterns coming to a close because this solar eclipse is affecting your 7th house. This can talk about bringing about new resources or utilizing existing resources in new ways so that you can create more personal development. For example, you might meet a friend of a friend, or a partner of yours, be it business or romantic, gets you into contact with someone else that you can partner up with in a friendship context or in like a useful network support to have. So watch out for what other people are supplying to you. But because the North Node is in your sign, it is likely that the universe is almost speaking through you. This can feel especially divine around this time. You can feel this burst of energy coming in, be it in an external context where there's a lot of dynamism coming through, or it is you just feeling very pumped up and motivated, desiring to take an action for change. Now, you are known for initiation, okay? You are known for being fearless and brave and bold and all of that. But as a human, there are certain things that we still hold ourselves back on. And that's where like the Chiron in Aries comes in. I talk about this in the general description in the beginning of the video. So if you want, you can go back to that. It'll explain what the energy is and how can you most utilize that in a best possible scenario. So Chiron falls in your sign at this time and it's retrograde, okay? So even if you're known to be a fearless zodiac, where is it that you still hold yourself back? Or where is it that you still feel scared or insecure or whatever the case is, right? There can be certain woundings that you might be dealing with and little insecurities that we don't like to, tackle. We don't like to dig into those things. That is what Chiron represents. And the answer to those things can be, talking it out with someone else, not being too, closed off at this time, not saying that, okay, I'm going to do everything by myself, and instead sharing some information, because someone else's experience or a conversation you have with someone else can be quite helpful, healing, accepting. You can find lots of, different perspectives and tips and compassion as well from different sources. So don't close the door and negate external opportunities or contacts or whatever to come into your life. Because Mercury is in Libra, just like the eclipse components, that is the sun, the moon, and also the south node, it's going to be a lot about finding balance by releasing certain things that are no longer working. Okay, and what that could be is going to come through other people or other perspectives. Now, other than the Libra Aries axis, we also have Mars in Scorpio. Mars rules Scorpio, and it is trining with Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is retrograde. So this is going to be a harmonious aspect full of healing and compassion, as well as self-understanding and depth of, your psyche, because it's affecting your 8th house and your 12th house. This can be a time where you're releasing certain patterns, transforming stuck situations. If, for example, you've been putting in a lot of effort and doing some research into investments and loans and banking or other people's finances in some way, then this can be about what needs to be let go first in order to, move in that direction, to create some gains in that perspective. Now, it can even be releasing of certain assumptions, okay? So it doesn't have to be a material thing that you need to stop investing over there in order to invest in some other place, but it's just that if you believe as though this is the only way it can be, then this aspect is going to help you see in different ways the same thing. Okay, so it brings you different opportunities from unexpected sources in a sense. And I say unexpected because the 12th house is being activated. This is where things get really spiritual, things get really abstract and intuitive as well. And Saturn in that sign, albeit it is retrograde, it wants to create a form of structure, so that we have a better way of connecting with ourselves and our sense of purpose. You might also find yourself being quite deeply investigative, working with the shadow, dealing with your fears and insecurities. If there are certain, commitment or intimacy issues as well, this can be a time where you're really looking deeper and you're like, okay, what stops me? Okay, what stops me from connecting deeper into any bonds that I create? Now, Venus is going to be in Virgo. Venus is the ruler of this eclipse. And in Virgo, she's giving you blessings and trying to better your lifestyle, your organization, how managed you are, the way that you come to service, and ensuring that you're not leaning towards the more, overly of a perfectionistic or analytical side of things. Of course, it's important to be a little bit of everything, but anything going overboard, anything not balanced is just not the best idea. In the shadow side, Venus in Virgo can be overly critical. It's like, if this mark is not met, then nothing is good enough. Okay, now Venus is not directly forming any aspect to this eclipse, but it being in a nice state is always going to be helpful. So making sure that you take care of yourself, of your possessions, that you're also being loyal, devoted, and driven, dedicated towards your work, your passion, and the way that you show up in the world on a regular day, that's going to be extremely helpful. It also helps you channel the energy because you're a fire sign and Mars in a strong position. It's important to channel the energy so that it keeps on fueling you. Okay, and Virgo is all about that slow and steady because it's an earth sign, but continual expenditure of this energy. So it can be doing yoga every day or going running somewhere, doing some meditation as well to mix it up. That can be super helpful. Now let's talk about the second eclipse. It's a Taurus Lunar eclipse, and this is on the 28th. It's at 5 degrees of Taurus. This is activating your second house of personal finances, your self-worth, priorities, as well as your personal value system. Now Taurus is also ruled by Venus, and she is in Virgo, right? So Taurus and Virgo, both of them are earth signs, and therefore they're in a harmonious angle with one another. So Venus is more able to help you out with this Taurus sector rather than the Libra sector. So whatever work you're doing, whatever patterns you're cultivating in this month, it's going to lead you towards a better, income status. Your lifestyle can be upgraded in some way. You can be coming into money ideas, or you're just thinking that this is beneath me, so I'm not going to keep doing this, or this is not helping me grow anymore, so I should not stay stagnant just because I've been doing something so far. Now that's important to keep in mind because we also have a lot of purging that's happening at this time. Okay, Mercury is going to conjunct with Mars in the sign of Scorpio. So this is deeply, deeply, deeply investigative. It's not going to leave any stone unturned. If you feel as though you have lower self-worth than what you are capable of, then this is the time where you're like, nope, I'm not going to stay complacent. I'm not going to stick here and be like, oh, well, this is my deal in life. And I'm not going to be like, well, I'm afraid of this. What are you going to do? No. Mars is going to help you dig a little bit deeper and do something about the shadow work and the information that you find. It's not so much about what could be done, what could be the case. It's not hypothetical anymore when we have personal planets in such a deep house. Same goes with your investments, loans, and all of that. If you have loans to be repaid, then this is the time you're like, okay, I just have to figure out a way to deal with this situation. I can't have this ongoing because it can become burdensome if not feeling that already. Now, Jupiter is retrograde in the sign of Taurus as well. That's where the moon is. That's where the lunar eclipse is. So it's an important thing to take into account. Now, Jupiter retrograde is going to be about reconsidering your belief systems. If you've been expanding on the outside, it's important to tune inwards and see which of those expansions are more true to you. Which one is for what? Essentially, for example, let's say you have multiple streams of income and you are spreading yourself thin. And yes, it does bring you some money, but at the same time, you might be like, well, that stream is not really me, so I'm going to cut back on that because I can't keep on spreading myself very thin. It's important to explore when Jupiter is direct, but it's important to explore within and cut back on certain external things if need be when Jupiter goes retrograde. Same goes with your belief systems regarding your self-worth or your priorities. Perhaps certain things are changing in your life at this time. Eclipses do bring about changes and wild card situations. So if they are changing, this would be the time to absorb that and think about it, contemplate on things. This eclipse is more about tuning inward and seeing what makes sense for you personally, especially when it is affecting your first and the seventh house, as well as your second and eighth houses. Now, Mars, like I mentioned, is quite strong at this time, so you have that transformative vibe to you. So if something doesn't agree with you, it just doesn't. There is nowhere to hide when we talk about Scorpio. Now, another thing to mention is that Pluto is going to be in Capricorn and is direct at this time. Pluto is the planet of transformation, death, and rebirth, as well as intimacy. And it's also about power, manipulation, and control. And all of these qualities can take on the shadow role as well, just like with any energy with astrology. But the Capricorn house is at a sextile angle with the Scorpio house. So that's important because we have so many personal planets going on in Scorpio, and wherever the personal planets go, that's where a lot of dynamism is more consciously felt. Now, whatever is going on with this Taurus Scorpio axis regarding your priorities, finances, shared assets, you are going to have certain opportunities that come up with regards to your career, your public image, your status, and reputation in general. If there are certain changes you've been wanting to make with regards to how you can relate to a new community, perhaps, or make new friends, or reach out to different people from your past in order to advance your career in some regard, this eclipse is going to help you out with that. But it is still up to you to follow up with those opportunities because it's still a sextile. Trines bring about, immediate blessings or some resolutions, but sextiles need us to take a little bit of action in order to bring in this abundance, essentially. So Taurus, now it's your turn. Let's see. So the first eclipse for you is going to fall in your sixth house of day-to-day routines, lifestyles, health, and habits. And also it includes how you come to service to the world. So what's your daily occupation, for example? Now with the South Node over there, it can be that you are going through some type of release, surrender, change, and it can be that you're leaving certain jobs behind or certain activities that you've been adopting for the past, let's say, 9 to 10 years that you're shifting out of, okay? And it just indicates that it's time for a little less focus on your everyday life and routines and a little bit more on your spiritual world or your inner self. So it's important to look into that. Now, Chiron is going to be in Aries as well. Now, Chiron is the planet of wounds, insecurities, as well as of, practical wisdom. So it's important to look inward in the quest for bringing about more healing and spiritual growth, because this indicates that you are a spiritual master of sorts. You are a very practical sign, so you do have that practical wisdom that I'm talking about. It's more so about really understanding what that is, because sometimes it's quite automatic. We don't know what we know unless we have to express it, right? Unless we have to dig into it and really investigate. So with the 12th house here, it's, by meditating, doing something flexible, going with the flow, and at the same time inspiring yourself, looking for that inspiration, taking bold risks by having faith in things, that's going to be the most beneficial way to take advantage of this energy. And the eclipse that comes up at this time is just going to show you what needs to be let go in order to create further growth in your personal life. Now, we do have that trine between Scorpio and Pisces, Mars being in Scorpio and Saturn being in Pisces, which is affecting your 7th house and your 11th house. This is a very social angle. This can indicate that your friends, your network, your one-to-one connections, romantic relationships, these are the people that can really help you out with feeling more peace or finding a way to, do that self-searching. Because honestly, that 12th house is where Pisces is generally placed. So it would be the water signs that can actually help you out on a more personal level to deal with certain emotions that are coming up, or tackle the situations you're dealing with at this time in different ways. Now, Saturn is retrograde, which means that there are some restructuring that needs to be going on. Perhaps you're finding yourself associating with or relating better with different networks of people, and you're like, okay, well, how do I make this shift? What does that mean for me? I'm really inspired. I'm so curious about these people, and I just need to, commit to them a little bit more. How could I do that? Because it's a trine aspect, this is a helpful aspect, and it's going to help you figure yourself out a lot better, and also helps your relationship front. Now, Venus, who's the ruler of this eclipse, is in Virgo, which is a fellow earth sign. And for you, it is going to be a little bit more helpful personally. It won't directly affect the eclipse, but it will help you out. Venus is your ruler as well. So in the sign of Virgo, she's helping you to figure out, what do you really enjoy? What does your heart want? How can you connect better with your children if you have any? Or what do you think about children at this time? Perhaps some health needs to be improved, certain patterns need to be changed in order to conceive, if that's your goal. Apart from children, the 5th house talks about creativity as well as romance. So how can there be more dedication and reliability within your connection? How can you schedule in some date times, instead of going with the flow or being like, well, it happens when it happens, but rather, making it a priority? Because Virgo is all about what's your priority. Taurus is all about what's your value, what's your priority, right? Because you guys make time for what is really important for you, right? And Venus is totally supporting that at this time. So I think this eclipse for you is going to be beneficial in the sense that it's a decluttering one. Okay, now the next eclipse we have is a Taurus eclipse that falls in your sign, of course, and we have Jupiter in your sign as well. Jupiter is retrograde, so there can be certain personal beliefs and conditioning that you are letting go, or at least you're thinking about letting go. Certain expansions you have experienced in life, you are in the recent past at least, you're looking at, okay, what is too much? What can I not handle? Or how can I better manage moving forward? Jupiter, while retrograde, brings it about this reassessment of things. Now, it's important to note that the Sun, Mercury, and Mars are in Scorpio, which is your 7th house. So it can be that your partner is quite busy at this time, or that, they are quite communicative. There's just a lot going on in their lives, and you are kind of, I wouldn't say you're just witnessing it, but you are observing a lot of this that's happening. And there can be different perspectives that you gather from other people's experiences. Okay, if you have a Scorpio in your life, Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising, it's important to, talk to them, or, just observe what they have going on, because it can, it can just bring in some sudden insights. Jupiter is all about that wisdom, right? And like I mentioned in the previous eclipse, you have that trine between Scorpio and Pisces, and this other person just becomes quite important at this time, right? So take advantage of this passion. Now, in ongoing relationships, speaking of passion, right, there's likely going to be some more intimacy here if you guys are able to find some time, or you have some passionate conversations. If there are certain misunderstandings, this would be the time that you get to the bottom of things to figure things out, so that there is equilibrium. Same goes with purging certain relationship patterns that are no longer beneficial for anybody. For example, if you don't want to date superficially, you just don't want to date superficially, right? You need to make that clear from the get-go, and that's a decision that you might be coming up with. Of course, what I said is an example, but you get my point. Now, Pluto, who is the ruler of Scorpio, is in Capricorn, and that falls in your 9th house, which is also a fellow earth sign, again in a beneficial angle to you. And it is sextiling Scorpio, which means that there is opportunity there. So you connecting with a partner can bring you some type of spiritual awareness, foreign contact, or, expansion of awareness and belief systems. If you're trying to declutter your social conditioning, for example, your partner might be able to point out, hey, this is something you've experienced, right? So maybe that's what's affecting you. It's more so about jogging the memory and seeing, what fits, what does not. ultimately you are going to be the one who decides what happens, what stays, what goes, and all of that. Your partner can just help you out along the way. Okay, Geminis, for you guys, the first eclipse is going to be in a fellow air sign in Libra, in your 5th house of joy, creativity, children, as well as romance. So it's important to see what needs to be gone at this time. So certain ways that you've been having fun or expressing yourself creatively, maybe that's not doing you any favors, or it's just not expressive enough. At different stages in life, we want to do things differently. We want to express ourselves differently. So what is that for you? There can be new ideas that come up which seem a little bit too bold for you. Okay, maybe you're like, I've never tried that. What would that be like? What do I do with everything that I have created so far, or everything that I know about myself so far? And so on. And this insecurity is coming from the point of, okay, can I publish my work? But that is so scary. This is something personal. Maybe I don't want to do that. And, if I connect with this community and they don't like what I do, then what if I don't like my expression? What if my creativity is not good enough? There can be certain insecurities that come up here with regards to publishing certain things, connecting with new people, making new friends, or even talking to older friends and getting their opinions. What if they think less of me? That type of situation can occur. It's important to think things through before you make certain decisions, but it's also important to balance things out by taking the action regardless of being, afraid or insecure about certain things. Because Aries, with the North Node being there, is all about taking risks and taking the initiative, taking the leadership role yourself, not waiting for things to happen to you, right? So in the 11th house, with Aries being there and Chiron being there, as well as the North Node, it's asking you to push forward in the direction of your hopes, dreams, and visions, and not only keeping that personal to yourself, but creating something out of it. It doesn't have to be a financial thing. It doesn't have to be a business, okay? I'm not recommending that if that's not something you want, but it's more so if you're seeking adventure, go for the adventure, instead of doing the same old things in your everyday life that have gotten a little bit humdrum. You are a mutable sign. You're one of the more adventurous signs I have have experienced, right? So it is important to stay inspired, because that's where you function the best. I think your mind, your mindset, the way you communicate, all of that just broadens in horizons when you do that. Now, because there is a harmonious aspect between Mars, who's the ruler of Aries, as well as Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So this is going to bring you some type of emotional balance as well as satisfaction when it comes to your work or your occupation, especially if you do something creative or something intuitive, emotional as well. This also indicates that there's some type of healing that's going on, purging of certain habits that are toxic or have been ongoing and suppressing you. This can then help you expand your professional outlook, your occupation in general. Perhaps you want to change the way that you come to service to others, or how you express yourself within your workspace, because this can then help you connect with larger people or larger audiences, gather more power in your everyday world, and just feel in general more autonomous. Now, Venus, who's the ruler of this eclipse of Libra, is sitting in Virgo, which is your 4th house of home, family, roots, and ancestry. So over here, she's making sure that your home is conducive to your health, that things are organized, and you're able to get stuff done on time, so that you don't have to worry about more things than you have already going on. If there is a need to make sure your diet is on point, or that there is good family dynamics, Venus is going to sort certain things out and also bring up certain things that have not been noticed by you in order for resolution to come in. Ultimately, it is going to bring you more peace in the long run. The second eclipse is a Taurus eclipse, and Taurus is in your 12th house of spirituality, abstract notions, your connection with your spiritual self, meditation, sleep life, unconscious. So it's an interesting one. You have been experiencing Taurus and Scorpio eclipses for quite some time, the past 1.5 years, so I'm sure you're quite accustomed to what this could be. And 12th house topics are quite personal to each and every person, so I can't really give you exact examples of what it could be, but you know your trend, you know your life, so I'm sure you can figure something out, or at least when certain things happen, you'll be like, yes, this is the 12th house that Ethernal was talking about. So anyway, we have Jupiter retrograde in this sign, in this house. So this is about figuring out what spiritual ideals are authentic to you. There are many ideologies. There are many schools of thought of what is the universe like, what is philosophy like, what is, what are dreams meaning, and all of that. But what does that mean for you? Okay, which one do you believe in? Because Taurus wants to find that one true thing, which is bringing stability, security, constructive growth, and expansion as well. Right? So I think with Jupiter over there, it's trying to figure out, okay, what needs to be gone from my conditioning, from my big picture mindset, and what questions do I want to ask at this time to the universe or to the world at large. This is a thought-provoking one. It's already a lunar eclipse, which is in general more internalized, very powerful from the within, and it's also quite introspective because it's the last Taurus eclipse we're going to experience for quite some time. And it's important to note as well that Mars, the Sun, and Mercury are all going to be in Scorpio in this eclipse. Now, Scorpio is the zodiac that rules power, manipulation, authority in an internal sense, in that, the power dynamic, where does it land? It's also about transformation, death and rebirth, and it's in general quite an intense zodiac, right? So Mars, who's the ruler of Scorpio, sitting in Scorpio along with Mercury, this can be about some competition you're experiencing in your workspace. If you're making applications, it can be that many people come forward. You might feel a little bit intimidated by others, or it can be that you are feeling intimidating at work, even if you're not trying to. Others may feel as though, oh, look at that, Gemini is totally doing well, they are intelligent and all of that, they're totally going to get all the power. There can be certain jealousy that crops up at this time. So avoid any drama. That would always be my advice when it comes to such strong energies, as best as you can, of course. If someone is trying to squelch your dreams or something, then of course, stand up for yourself, no problem there. But it's important to not initiate any arguments or fights at this time. Maybe wait for the energies to pass a little bit. November 15th or so, it will start waning a little bit. And then if you have certain grievances with a certain system or such, then you can express yourself quite concisely. But for this time, it's more important to look inward and see what your belief systems are and how they're affecting the way that you live your life. Because that 6th house also talks about your health, your routines, and your day-to-day habits. The way you come to work is also a part of it, of course, but it's a lot more than that. So are there certain things that are affecting your emotional, mental, or physical health? If so, look into them, see where they come from, and deal with them one way or the other. Sometimes we need to accept those things, sometimes we just need to understand them, and other times we need to make a habit change. It depends on each and every one of you, your specific situation, of course, but you see my point. Now let's talk about Pluto, who's the ruler of Scorpio. It is sitting in Capricorn in your 8th house, and the 8th house is about intimacy, private matters, secrets. It is also the esotericism. It talks about shared resources, investments, and loans as well. So with a sextile to this scorpionic energy, it says that there are certain opportunities through other people that can help you out with your everyday life. It can be that you're getting some type of, government grant or some type of approval coming in that helps you identify whether you want to keep doing a certain job or whether some role is right for you or not. If you're looking for some other ambitions as well, this would be a time where you evaluate, do some shadow work even, to see which one would be the best fit for you. How can you acquire more personal authority in your life? That can be a topic. Now, also in terms of your health, this can talk about shadow work, purging, and transformation too. It's not about getting everything done in one go. It's more of a slow and steady process, especially with Capricorn. And Scorpio does not want to rush things because it wants to do things well. It's more important for it to do things well rather than finish a certain goal and then still have it incomplete. Okay. Now, sextiles, like I said, they bring about opportunities for growth. So as you work on your personal health, you're also going to find that you're less fearful, less anxious about things, or you're less scattered as well. You're more focused, driven, and feeling powerful. Same goes the other way around. As you focus on shadow work, you also find that your health in your everyday life is improving too. With sextiles, it's an opportunity. It's not a given. It's not a granted energy, just like with trine. But it says that if you make the initiative or if you try to do something there, the energy was going to meet you halfway. So Cancerians, for you, the first eclipse falls in your 4th house of home, family, ancestry, and your roots, as well as your inner self. There can be certain things you are redoing, renovating, or releasing at this time. For example, looking forward to have more faith in life, or to release certain relationships you've been maintaining with certain people who are not beneficial to you or are not conducive to your personal health. If they are not caring for you, this would be a time that you are questioning how much energy you're putting into certain relationships. This also indicates how you communicate with your home and family environment, and this includes your roommates as well if you're sharing your house with someone. And this can be a time that you let go of a certain connection too. Now, the North Node is in your 10th house of Aries. That's also where Chiron is. And Mercury is in Libra, which is opposing Chiron in Aries. This is going to bring about certain fears and insecurities you may be holding on to, connected to your public status, your place in the world, the profession or the occupation that you are doing. Certain conversations that you have from home is going to help you out better sort your professional world in the future. Now, this also can talk about with the South Node in the 4th house. It can say that your family and your background, your inner self, is going to be the resource that helps you and propels you towards greater success in life. It, of course, depends on what your environment has been while growing up and what your family life is at this time. But, take that as it resonates. It is energy. It can go either way, and it depends on your personal use case as well. But essentially, it is saying that certain things, certain habits need to be let go in order to move forward in a bold, new, initiatory manner in the outside world. Now, apart from this Aries-Libra axis, we also have a trine, which is a harmonious aspect between Mars and Scorpio, which is in your 5th house of creativity, children, your romantic life as well. And also with the trine aspect is with Saturn in the sign of Pisces, and Pisces is the 9th house for you. Saturn is retrograde at this time, and this trine is indicating that certain restructuring is going on in your life with regards to your belief systems, your religion, spirituality, higher education, or mentorship programs that are going to help you feel a greater sense of peace and bliss in life. Now, both of these signs are water signs just like you, so this is going to be a highly supportive influence for you. If you're feeling good, your mood is right, and you're just connecting with your intuition and imagination, you are able to deal with this energy no matter what. There can also be certain mentor figures that from the past, especially, who can give you some type of guidance with regards to how you can express yourself best in order to achieve your bigger goals. Now, Venus, who's the ruler of this eclipse, is in Virgo, and that's your 3rd house of communication, short distance travel, siblings, relatives. It can also be your thought process. All right, so Venus over there is trying to smooth things out. Any disagreements you might have had in the past, that is coming to a resolution. This also indicates you're caring more for yourself, or you're at least thinking about how can you care more for yourself and also your environment. There can be some type of decluttering you're doing that is giving you a sense of fulfillment or satisfaction. It can also be adding some plants in your environment, in your local space, so you feel more grounded and connected to the universe, to Earth, to nature, and that is a very wonderful thing to do at this time, especially during eclipses, because it reminds us that we are never alone. Okay, we are never alone, no matter what. Now, the next eclipse is a Taurus lunar eclipse. This is more introspective, and it's sort of reflective as well, because we are not going to get a Taurus eclipse for quite some time, many years in fact. So this is going to be kind of a revision of what has already happened in the past 1.5 years, and what does that mean in this new context of the North Node being now in Aries instead of in Taurus. So in this, let's just talk about the planets here. We have the moon in Taurus, and also Jupiter, who's retrograde in Taurus. And Taurus falls in your 11th house of long-term, aspirations, your hopes and dreams, your bigger goals, your social media network, and just your friendships as well. Who do you connect with? Who do you identify with? These are the like-minded souls that are there in the world. Okay, so there can be a sense of security that you're finding in this area. Your friends could be going through some type of personal changes here as well. It doesn't seem as though you're expanding your friend group, but rather you're understanding your group more deeply at this time. So let's say you've joined a new social media platform and you didn't quite know what it was all about, but you joined and you saw what you liked, and okay, you're like, cool, I'm going to subscribe, I'm going to keep posting over here. But with Jupiter going retrograde, you're like, but what am I posting? Who are these people? It's about doing a little bit more research of what you're getting into. Now, the Taurus also talks about security and comfort zone too, or creating your comfort. So you're likely going to come across to others as comforting, as someone who's reliable and stable. And so other people can connect with you and feel quite, connected, essentially. Okay. Now, another thing to note is that this is a time of the full moon, which means that the sun is opposite the moon. So the sun, Mercury, and Mars are sitting in Scorpio in your 5th house of that creativity, children, and so on. So it can be that either you are getting pregnant or someone you know is getting pregnant or wanting to get pregnant. And if you've already had children, you could be the one in the position to give advice. Of course, not everyone is going through this situation, but that would be a very literal way that this plays out. But apart from that, this can talk about how you are fueled up and really inspired to take action on your intuition and your imagination, and to put things out there in the world to, bring a, let's say, financial gain, or more recognition of something you have going on. Or it is just something that you love and you are secure about, so you want to share it with the world just because. It can be a piece of advice for sure. It can even be poetry. It can be something intense, sharing a personal story, things of that nature. This also indicates that there can be some transformation or healing about the inner child, and even in your love life there can be a reaching of intense conversations and reaching a level of a new level of passion. Now, of course, Mars is in Scorpio. Mars is pretty strong there. It rules Scorpio. And Pluto, who's the modern ruler of Scorpio, is in Capricorn, which is at a sextile angle to Scorpio. So sextile is all about opportunities, and we still need to take action on them. It's not automatic, but, given that we show some interest, it's going to come towards us. So in your case, because Capricorn falls in your 7th house of relationships, this can be that you're having a nice date with someone and you're having a good cozy time together, and you're also talking deeply, and you just had developed this new or deepened insight into how the other person thinks and operates. Now, Pluto is a planet of transformation. So it can talk about you going through a sort of inner child healing and transformation that can be triggered through a partner of sort. It can be a romantic partner, but it can also be one-to-one connections like a close friendship. In terms of contracts, because the 7th house can talk about business contracts or, company contracts as well. This can talk about you getting certain opportunities based on things that you enjoy. And it can also be that you're applying for certain jobs that you enjoy specifically, not so much the ones necessarily that lead to, big money or big fame or whatever. You're like, well, this is something I really enjoy. I find meaning in this. I have passion in this, and I'm just feeling really, really called to move move in this direction for some reason, so I'm just going to go for it. Now Pluto is direct at this time, which is really lovely because it means we can make a lot of these changes and create deep transformation. While when Pluto is retrograde, we're thinking about, okay, how can I create the transformation? What do I need to create this change? What is feeling stuck at this time in my relationships? Why is there no deepening of intimacy, and so on? Right, so I'm really liking that it is direct. It's able to help out the intensity of scorpionic energies, especially with Mars being there. Just watch out for harsh speech or intense speech. You're not one who's known for that, okay? But if you feel as though you're losing your temper on your kids or yourself or whatever, then take some time for yourself, care for yourself. That's very important here. Venus is still in Virgo, so she's always going to advocate for make sure you're keeping your health well, that your mindset is okay, because that's when you can deal most effectively with situations. So Leo, let's talk about you. You're doing the first eclipse, which is in Libra, in your third house of communication, siblings, short distance travel, environment, and local community, on the 14th. And this one is going to bring in some sort of dynamism connected to this area. So it can be certain communications that you're getting at this time, and you might feel as though, okay, really gotta declutter, and I don't need this in my space anymore, or I don't need this particular contacts or these types of colleagues anymore, and I just want to go off and do something on my own. It can also be that you might be feeling a little bit passive or complacent in the environment that you're in, and you're seeking some type of adventure, or at least you imagine that doing something bold and adventurous is going to take you out of your comfort zone, yes, but it's also going to bring you lots of fulfillment. So that would be a good idea. Although there is Chiron in Aries, so you might feel a little bit insecure, or, like, can I cope with it? How would I cope with it? Type of situations that come up here. And also third and the ninth houses, they talk about contracts and negotiations. Now, Mercury is in the third house, so there can be certain one-to-one connections you're having in order to establish some type of contract or promise. Also, there might be a need to compromise here or make a specific decision. I think you're weighing up, am I selling myself short, or am I doing what is best for my situation? Okay, something like that. Now, we also have this trine in the background between Mars in Scorpio and Saturn in Pisces. So Scorpio and Pisces for you fall in the 4th house and 8th house respectively. And it indicates that there can be some, drive you have, like, I want to provide for my family, and that just fuels you up, and you want to figure out a way to make that happen. It can be that you're reaching out to your partner's resources or their contacts. It can be through investments and loans, or, other benefits you might be getting through your work that you want to use and capitalize on, so that you can do some type of, movement, some type of change at the home space. But apart from the home and family, the 4th house also talks about your inner self. So this can be a very nice time for healing. Water signs are great for inner healing and bringing balance and peace to life. Okay, so Mars being in that 4th house, you're deeply research oriented at this time, and you want to figure out the best possible way to deal with certain fears, because you don't want to be held back by those things anymore. And by the way, I did not mention, but the North Node being in Aries is quite nice for you because it's a fellow fire sign. I mean, it is still, outside of the comfort zone as the North Node is associated with, but, it's kind of the good scary, right? All right, now let's talk about the ruler who is in your 2nd house of finances, self-worth, priorities, and values, and that is Venus. So Venus over here, not its most favorite place, but it can take on a range of expression depending on each and every person involved here, okay? So take a look at yourself individually and see what most resonates with your behavioral patterns, of course. But in general, Venus in Virgo can be quite service-oriented. calculated, it's meticulous. It is all about how can I organize best, how can I heal best, what do I need to spend on that is going to bring me more health, luck, and prosperity. And I say luck because Venus is involved, who's the lady luck of the planets of astrology. And Virgo can be also looking at what work you are doing and what are your gains from it. So how much are you putting in as an effort, time, energy, or resource, and what would you be getting back out of it? It's very calculated in that way. So money management can be quite strong at this time, and that can be helping you out in a way. Maybe not immediately, perhaps you don't see it right away, but it can be, lending itself towards the end of the month that you see the results of your efforts. Also, the shadow side of Venus can become a little bit too pedantic or instructional. It does not allow other people or even for self-satisfaction. It's more so, it can be sacrificing in that way. Like, I have to suffer in order to make this money, or I have to be extremely anxious and be on my edge in order to capitalize on any opportunities that come up. But the plus side is always that Venus wants to strive to find that balance, and sometimes, you gotta wobble a little bit, go over there, go over here, a little bit to the extreme, but then you eventually come back to that middle ground. So strive towards balance and all will be good with this one. Then the next eclipse you have is the Taurus lunar eclipse. This is a little bit more introspective. I talk about all of this, by the way, in greater detail in the general overview. So go ahead and watch that because it'll give you some tips as well of what the energy is and what can be done out of those situations. But okay, we have this second eclipse on the 28th of October. It's at 5 degrees of Taurus, and that falls in your 10th house of profession, occupation, your public status, your reputation, who you are in the public world, right? So this, yes, is important, this house, because we have the moon there. We also have Jupiter going retrograde at this time over here. So it can be that you're questioning your beliefs around this, or you're looking at certain mentor figures that have guided you up to the status that you're achieving at this time. And you might be learning from experience, okay? So you might have done something like this before, but it's a different take on it. So now it gives you a chance to complete the story in a sense. And Jupiter, while direct, wants to expand outward, but when it's retrograde, it's like, okay, you've already expanded outward and now it's time to integrate these things into yourself or complete the picture by going back a little bit, looking at it from a different perspective, and then moving on from that point. So you might look at yourself in the world differently by the time Jupiter is done, and this eclipse can be an important chapter that either starts or completes depending on where you are, and that can give you some new perspective to think about. But more importantly, there's a lot of scorpionic energies that's happening. It is a time of the full moon, which means the sun and the moon are opposite each other. So the sun is in Scorpio in your 4th house. So is Mercury and Mars. And Mercury and Mars are conjoining. So they are extremely close together. And Mars is ruling Scorpio. So basically in this conjunction, Mars has more say than Mercury does. Okay, so it's very, very important to not suppress your energy, but try to channel it in a way that is constructive to you. So it can be going for a run, doing some difficult exercise. It can be delving deep into some psychological topic if that's interesting for you. It can even be doing some self-work and certain healing things. It can be writing down what priorities you have with regards to your legacy, your home, your family, your ancestry. What is it that you're trying to deal with at this time? So focusing in on something is a very good way of channeling that Mars in Scorpio, regardless of physical activity or a written thing. You might also want to or push for working from home as well, and that might give you a feeling of more flexibility or at least more stability while you're in the home space. But yeah, you might have to if you have people who are guiding you from the past, then perhaps there is a good chance of negotiation. But if this is someone completely new, you're not used to their patterns, then maybe you have to do some compromising here, or figuring out different ways to improve your efficiency, essentially. But that's not really your top concern, I don't think. Mars, wherever it goes, there is busyness, so it can be that you have lots going on at home, many communication, lots of people coming in or visiting around this time, and you have to kind of declutter or rearrange things to make sure everybody has accommodation. Now, another thing to note is Pluto, the modern ruler of Scorpio, is in your 6th house, which is related to your occupation as well, but more on a day-to-day basis. It also relates to your lifestyle, your routines, your health and habits. Okay, so that being in a positive angle to this house is essentially saying that whatever you're doing in the lifestyle that you have, you don't have to change it so far in order to accommodate for people. So it's not an unpleasant thing to declutter certain things. Also, it says that doing small little things every day is going to improve your efficiency, your mindset, the way you feel about yourself and your environment drastically. Okay, Pluto is the planet of transformation, and it is moving direct, so it is likely that you can create changes in your workspace much more effectively, much quickly, as opposed to when Pluto was retrograde. Okay. All right, Virgo, let's talk about you. The first eclipse, which is in Libra, occurring on the 14th, falls in your 2nd house of finances, your self-worth, values, and priorities. So this one is also having the South Node, which means that there needs to be less focus on expanding the 2nd house matters and a little bit more focus on pursuing newer avenues where you can get certain benefits, like government benefits or company benefits, loans, investments, shared assets, also enhancing your intimacy, improving your passion in life, and things like that. Okay. But Chiron is sitting in Aries and is right opposite Mercury, who's also in Libra. So this can be communicating about certain insecurities and fears you might be having regarding a relationship or regarding a contract. And you might be going over certain financials or things that are of concern at this time. But it can be that you have been worried about this for a while because Chiron is retrograde. So you're bringing back something you've been thinking about, mulling over, or have been feeling deep down onto the surface. Now, there's also a healing perspective to this because the 8th house represents psychological traumas and also healing capabilities. So you might be conversing with a therapist or someone that you feel close to. And you might be going over what you are thinking or feeling and so on, and you're looking for an external perspective on those things. Essentially, you're looking to improve your financial condition as well as your self-worth. Now, in the background, we also have Mars in Scorpio trining with Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is retrograde. Now, Scorpio and Pisces falls in your 3rd house and 7th house, respectively. So this talks about a very social time. It can be that your partner is supportive, your colleagues are supportive, your one-to-one connections are quite helpful in bringing you peace and harmony, as well as resolution at this time. It might be a social situation that you're in, and you're quite enjoying the types of people you're meeting with. It can feel almost like a like-minded or a like soul type of connection. Quite deep, quite nice. And the ruler of this eclipse, which is Venus, she's in Virgo in your sign. So you are more out front here. You're looking at how can I up-level myself? How can I find myself more beautiful? How can I care more for myself, heal myself, and so on? How can I improve my presentation in the world, be it for relationships or just in general? Venus can, in general, in the sign of Virgo, can also get a little bit more pedantic when it comes to if something is not going well, like I must heal this, or I must figure out a more efficient way, a more productive way to create this self-healing space. So you might find yourself purchasing certain things or coming up with ideas that help you meditate better, improving your environment, your space in some regard. You generally are decluttered. It's perhaps in your nature, right? You don't enjoy messes, but with Venus over here, you might be looking at what can be like a home improvement or a self-improvement type of situation here. Comfort food, comfort zone, I think you're looking at those things. at this time. But in the background, you have this desire to do something exciting, something different from what you've done before. But perhaps not quite yet, but don't worry, this is just the seed. The eclipse is just the initiation, and then it's going to carry forward in the coming 4 to 6 months into materialization. So don't be hard on yourself if something is not immediately being figured out. Now, the next eclipse is on the 28th of October. This is at 5 degrees of Taurus, and that falls in your, let's see, ninth house. It's a fellow earth sign, so it is likely going to bring in harmony. May not always feel like it during eclipses. It's like, why is this happening to me type of situations can also occur, but in the long run, that is 4 to 6 months from the time of occurrence of the eclipse, you might see that I see, like, thank goodness, thank goodness I did not get that job, because the company went under, or something else, right? Now, it's important to note that there is the moon and Jupiter in retrograde in that ninth house. So you might be looking at your belief system, social conditioning, and certain authorities, mentor figures that you have experienced in the past, and you're noticing how much they have influenced your growth and your expansion in the world. This can be for the better, this can be for the worse as well, but regardless, you're getting this distant perspective here, and you're understanding your own self, your own needs, all right? And that brings in immense healing. And like I said, there is that trine energy here. So you're likely going to be taking this in a constructive way, like a blessing, a sense of clarity that dawns upon you. And because it's a time of the full moon, this indicates that the sun and the moon are in opposition, which means that the sun is in the sign of Scorpio, which is your third house of communication, short distance travel, your relatives and siblings, your colleagues as well, your local environment and community. So also includes your mindset, by the way. So over here we have the sun. We also have Mercury and Mars, and Mercury and Mars are conjoining with one another, and because Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, it is going to have the larger say in the topic. So Mercury just kind of has to follow along with what Mars is saying, and if Mars wants to be harsh in its speech, then Mercury is just going to be. If Mars is feeling angry and not satisfied or suppressed and repressed in a certain environment, it's likely going to lash out at this time. So watch out for that. It's important to kind of tune in at this time if you can, okay? I would really, really recommend that, especially when it comes to that third and the ninth house axis, because the local environment can be affected by what you're saying, even if you're not meaning for it to come out so harshly, or even if you're not meaning to hurt someone deeply. I mean, I hope that nobody actually wants to go that far, but it can be that other people perceive it to be much harsher than you intended it to come out, okay? So pausing a little bit to think about it is going to be quite essential. And also Mars in Scorpio is quite, research oriented. You are a pretty research oriented, analytical sign as well. So, you can, you definitely have the capability to use this energy in that manner, right? So delving a little bit deeply, thinking about what you're going to say. In the end, it can still come out as potent as you want it to, okay? If you really have to give a critical feedback about something, you can say it as potently as you want, and potency is covered in Scorpio, but it's also important to frame it in a way that is more constructive as well. But if you are feeling suppressed and repressed in any way, I think it would be good to go for either therapy or talk to some mentor you're comfortable with, someone who understands you. They can be even a foreign culture person or someone with a different background. It can be quite nice to share your feelings with someone else at this time if you can. All right. Now, another thing to note is that Pluto, the modern ruler of Scorpio, is sitting in Capricorn, and that's in your fifth house of children, creativity, self-expression, and it is at a trine angle to your personal sign. So a sextile energy is about opportunities, and while it is not immediate resolution or bam, out of nowhere, the clouds are cleared and there you go, move on, like a trine would do, sextiles are like, well, this can be resolved if you do this. So there is the solution expression, but you got to make the move, right? And as you work on your personal expression and creativity, you might find more, less of that suppression in the Scorpio house, or you feel less stifled in any way, less angry, or, you find a deeper sense of satisfaction in whatever you delve into. Scorpio is also related to esotericism and also alternative healing modalities. So you might find yourself enjoying such topics at this time. And you also see that, hey, this is healing me too. All right. Yes, and also with sextiles, it works kind of vice versa as well. So when you work on the Scorpio house, you get benefits in the Capricorn house. When you work on the Capricorn house, you get benefits in the Scorpio house. So Libra, Sun, Moon, and Rising, let's talk about you. We have a Libra solar eclipse, of course, that falls in your sign, in your rising sign. So this is an especially important time for you guys because the South Node is in your zodiac as well. And whenever the South Node transits that first house, you might see that you have a lot of experience from the past that can help others out. And you might, if you're trying to put yourself out there and, find a lot of recognition and things like that, you might find a little bit of blockages or hurdles along the way. And the purpose of that is not to annoy you, but it's just to reflect something that is internal and it's just being externalized as, a physical circumstance. But it sure does sometimes feel like, the outside world is not helping you out and that you have to resolve certain things internally first. And the South Node in that first house can also feel a little bit isolating. It can be willful, but it can be also imposed depending on your individual circumstances. For example, you might want to not be too social at this time. Like, let me think about myself a little bit. Or spend some time by myself reflecting. Also, towards the end of this transit, around 1.5 years from now, you're likely going to feel a little bit exhausted through this whole process, but you will also see that you have uncovered many talents you've had from past lives, and you have this revitalization of your energy as well. It's essentially to step you up into a different step or a different phase of your life, okay? A different version of you is about to unfold. So the North Node is in Aries, right opposite your sign, and the Chiron, the wounded healer, is in Aries as well and is retrograde at this time. Now Mercury, who's the planet of communication, is in your zodiac. So it might be that other people who are going through certain difficult times in their life and need some type of therapy or counseling or just to talk it out with someone might come to you. And you have a way of seeing the world in a different lens. You have a fair-minded approach. You look at what's right, what's wrong, pros and cons, and you try to make the best judgment and the fairest judgment of all about whatever situation or person you're dealing with. So trying to find that balance, the tendency that you have of doing that is going to be quite beneficial to other people who are not able to figure out how to do that. Okay, so you might find that your help is what other people are needing. So orienting yourself towards other people in that way can be quite beneficial. And as a return, what you see is by listening to others, by observing others, you understand how you have evolved in the past, or you just get a deeper insight into yourself. It's almost like the divine is speaking to you directly through other people. They can say a random thing that you needed to hear at that time, but you never expressed out loud. You might have the feeling of, I wish, other people would just motivate me and encourage me to keep pursuing my dreams and goals. But you might not have said that to someone else, but then you hear one of your close friends or your partner be like, you know what, just buck up and let's keep on going. I will help you out through it. Let's go for it. And that could bring some tears in your eyes, or it could just make you think like, whoa, how did that person know? Okay, so very interesting things happen when the North and the South Node transit that first and the 7th house. I have Scorpio rising, and I had this for the previous 1.5 years. The South Node was in my sign, and towards the end of the transit, I was quite exhausted. It is draining whenever the South Node is there. It's important to not overly focus on yourself and your personal development, because the South Node is something that happens more automatically, and we need to orient ourselves towards accepting other people's help, or observing what other people do, and kind of integrating certain strengths that we see from the others into our personal lives. Okay, so for example, Scorpio for me is all about the transformation. And I'm like, okay, how can I let the old part of me die and bring about a different me? Okay, are there different ways that I can be healing myself and things like that? And for as long as I tried to figure everything out by myself, it was exhausting. I was running around in circles. It never made any sense to me, and it was just an overall frustrating experience. So then what I did was just go out and meet my closest people who I trust, who have been by my side through thick and thin, my partner as well. And I didn't talk about these specific, deep things that I was thinking about, but just conversing just opened up my eyes of, okay, so this person deals with situations like this. And because the opposite sign for me is Taurus, Taurus indicates that the people I generally associate with on a one-to-one basis tend to be people who are more practical or more grounded and stable, carrying momentum and things like that, which is quite different from the Scorpio way of working, which is more emotional and deep and wants to research and things like that. Right, so you are going to notice a different facet in other people that is very inspiring to you personally in creating any changes that you're wanting to make in your life. It's important to go with the flow with this one. Be observant as best as you can, and if others reach out to you, go ahead and help them. Now, in the background, we do have Mars and Scorpio trining with Saturn and Pisces. Saturn is retrograde at this time, and Scorpio Pisces land in your 2nd house and 5th houses respectively. Sorry, your 6th house, 2nd and 6th. So this can talk about your occupation or your financial situation, your self-worth, and how you're just feeling about passion and creativity in general. You might feel compelled to write something or to develop a system, new habits perhaps, or restructure old habits in a way that you can express yourself best on a day-to-day basis. Some of you can even be monetizing certain talents you have. You are a generally creative and artistic sign, so you are fueling that passion and you are creating something quite profound for yourself. Okay, now this can be also in the workplace, that you are looking at what is a good idea to make money or to expand your current financial circumstances through the work that you do. Perhaps there are multiple streams of income you can set up that is going to bring you this extra sense of security. Or is it that you need to reach out to certain shared assets locations such as banks and for loans or investments that you want to make, or even company benefits or government benefits and things like that could help you out. Now, the ruler of this eclipse is Venus, and Venus is in your 12th house. So it's a little bit of a hidden house, and Venus is not much of a fan of in Virgo. But I suppose everyone is not going to agree fully, but there is the way I like to think about this is that everything has a spectrum. Not everything is completely black and white. Right, there is a way to use this energy constructively. There is also a way to use this destructively. So the destructive way would be that Venus becomes extremely pedantic in the sign of Virgo and is like, if I don't do something the way I want it to be done, then I hate myself, or I'm not good enough, or my whole life is a crisis now. Okay, it can take it a little bit very far and has no end to it in that 12th house. But what it intends to do is to improve itself. Okay, that's the intention, and we need to keep that in focus throughout this whole process. It's important to make sure that you're sleeping well, that you're exercising, eating well, caring for your emotional and mental health and well-being. Reach out to professionals if there is some help you need here. Okay, but Venus in the plus side in this house can give you immense skill for organization, decluttering, attention to detail. And you might think, well, that's not really what I associate myself with, but you have this within you. It may not have been expressed all the time, but it is definitely there in you, and all it needs is an avenue or an opportunity to be exercised. With Venus there, you might find ways that you enjoy. Maybe decluttering is not really your fun time activity. That's okay. We don't have to love each and everything. But with Venus there, it makes things a little bit more pleasant to, remove certain things from our hidden space, work on energy flows. With Venus, who is the planet of attraction and magnetism, she is looking at how can you manifest more health, prosperity, well-being. All right. Now, the next eclipse is a Taurus lunar eclipse. This is more introspective, and this falls in your 8th house. So this is about your shared resources, right? Where are you getting your finances? Is it through research, for example? Is it through shared situations like your partner's money, or a joint account perhaps, or a rented place, or something of that nature? What are your investments doing in all of that? So that you might be contemplating, all right, like, is this the best decision for me right now? Maybe I need to make certain changes, make certain moves. If something is a little bit too much or too extreme and you're being pulled in multiple directions, this would be a time when you're like, something needs to come to a close, because it's a time of the full moon. And also, this is going to be the last Taurus eclipse we're going to see for quite some time now. Also, Taurus is ruled by Virgo. What am I saying? Taurus is ruled by Venus, and Venus is in Virgo. So that is going to be more beneficial. And the effects of what I was saying, the beneficial effects of Venus that you can experience, you're likely going to see more of that happening towards the end of the month. But give these eclipses a little bit of time to play out. It's not always that on the day, bang, something brand new happens all the time, right? Give it some time, and it will showcase itself in the most constructive way. And sometimes I feel as though when something does not happen drastically on that point, exactly on that day, I find it to be better, honestly, because it sinks in and it translates to the external in a more constructive manner, or at least that's my experience. All right, what's to note here is that we have the moon and Jupiter retrograde in that Taurus house, in your 8th house. So you might find that you want to connect intimately with someone or create some type of healing here. It's good to go back to certain healing modalities you have experienced before, or certain therapists you have connected with, certain research you have done before, because that can give you a different perspective right now. In terms of romantic connections, this can be, again, looking at certain beliefs and ideals that have been discussed or shared between the two of you, because that can lead to more intimacy too. When you share a bigger picture or a bigger ideal, it can lead to more depth within the connection. There can also be a religious or a spiritual aspect to it. You might feel as though you've met this person in the past, and you might not be able to explain why you feel connected to a certain person, but you just do. Now, another thing to keep in mind is that this is a full moon, which means the sun and the moon are opposite one another. The sun is in Scorpio, which is that 2nd house of yours, personal finances, values, priorities, and self-worth. Mercury and Mars are also there, and they are conjunct each other. And because Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, it is going to have the bigger say in this relationship. So Mercury is essentially going to communicate Mars's desires in that 2nd house. So if you're looking for more finances, you're going to put that into action. You're going to make certain strategies or communicate with certain people, and you might find yourself being very, very driven and passionate at this time. Okay, it's important to also take in feedback, and I think you would at this time, because Jupiter retrograde is going to give some type of ideas and tips and tricks and so on. Can feel a little bit chaotic around the eclipses, okay? Just disclaimer, something to know, because these are very potent times and fate intervenes whenever there are eclipses, and it might be confusing, but there is a method to the madness in the long run, so we are going to find out soon enough. Mars can be pretty intense, especially in the sign of Scorpio. So watch out for, any destructive tendencies you might have. If this obviously applies if you already have this latent in you, or something you know yourself to be or do, or something like that. And this destructive tendency can be towards like self-sabotage, or it can be towards like overspending or something like that. Doing your research is going to be the best way to work with this energy. Mars in Scorpio is very strong when it comes to delving really deep into a specific subject, and especially with Mercury supporting you, you can really come up with something that's a pivotal idea for you, or is a transformative situation for your finance and self-worth. Another thing to note is that Pluto, the ruler of Scorpio as well, it's the modern ruler, is in the sign of Capricorn, which is at a sextile relationship with Scorpio, and Capricorn falls in your 4th house. It can be that your family is helping you out with your financial situation in some way, or they have certain experience or backdrop to kind of guide you and give you certain tips in order to move forward with your financial situation. It can also be your family support is what is encouraging you and improving your self-worth and so on and so forth. Sextiles are opportunities, yes, but they need you to take certain type of action. So you know that someone else in your family is doing something that you want to be doing. It's important to reach out to them in order to get the tip, right? It won't come automatically to you. But also one other thing that's great about sextiles is that when you work on the Scorpio side of the house, you get benefits in the Capricorn side. When you work on the Capricorn side, you get benefits on the Scorpio side. Okay, there's a mutual reception in that regard. Okay. Scorpios, so about you, we have the first eclipse on the 14th, which is in the sign of Libra. It's a solar eclipse, and that falls in your 12th house of unconscious, your deep, inner state, your spiritual state, your sleep life as well. This can be especially spiritual in experience for you, and you are a spiritual zodiac yourself, and a quite deep one at that. So you might see that you're letting go of certain self-sabotaging habits because you are letting go of certain insecurities or fears. Certain attachments are also being gone from your life in order to enhance your life's quality, upgrade your living, and improve your mood overall. But more so, I feel as though your energy levels are going to be shifting and changing around this time in order to regain a different type of balance as opposed to what has been ongoing so far. You are going to be dealing with this north and south node in your 6th and 12th axis. So this is something where it's more action oriented and it wants to create change. Okay, it's not so much about who am I, who are others, what do I mean in the world, but rather what am I doing and what am I not doing, right? Now, Chiron is in Aries, which is in that 6th house, and there might be some type of dissatisfaction, and this is something that is ongoing already with regards to either your health, your lifestyle routines, or your day-to-day work. Maybe you're thinking, yeah, there's something that's missing, there's something that's off, and I can't figure out what exactly it is. Or it can be that you're afraid to take certain risks, even though you know that those risks are going to help you in expanding your work, your business, yourself, and your life in general. Now, Mercury is also in Libra in the 12th house and is opposite Chiron at this time. So there can be some communication you receive through spiritual methods, spiritual gurus as well, or through hypnosis and sleep that can help you in understanding the wounds, or at least having a vague idea of what could be done about that. Certain other people who have gone through similar experiences can also help you out. Look in your environment instead of the spiritual world directly. But as it can be, for example, you're doing your regular chores, you're living your life, and then you just suddenly have this flash of insight at this time. The 12th house can't really be controlled or harnessed in a very conscious manner. So it's kind of difficult to work with it, but spending some time to meditate, but also doing your own thing, not putting too much pressure on either side is going to help the energy flow a lot better. Okay, now another thing to note is that Mars is in your sign and is trining with Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn is retrograde at this time. So this is targeting your 1st and the 5th houses. So you're feeling in general more creative at this time, or you're at least looking at what can be done in your regular life and routines that can allow for more self-expression or creativity. Now the 5th house also talks about love and romance. So maybe you're looking at, I'm feeling passionate, I feel like I'm ready to connect with people, or connect deeper with my partner. So let's go for a date and it's about time, or, we just need to make something happen, share certain hobbies or interests and so on in order to find that connection. So Mars in Scorpio can be quite research oriented. It's very deep, intimate, and passionate as well. So you're likely going to come across more appealing than average. Now, the ruler of this eclipse is Venus, and Venus falls in your 11th house at this time in the sign of Virgo. So this is going to be pleasant conversations, pleasant interactions with your social circle. This can be your larger network that you associate with, but also your friend groups. Also says that moving towards your hopes, dreams, and aspirations are going to be beneficial at this time, or at least that's where you can feel that love, passion, and creativity flowing. Now, the next eclipse is a Taurus lunar eclipse. It's internal and introspective. This one, it's occurring on the 28th of October at 5 degrees of Taurus, which is right opposite your sign. Now, this is going to be the last Taurus eclipse we're going to see for quite some time. So it's going to be an important chapter closing moment. All right, let's talk about this. So we have the moon and Jupiter retrograde in the sign of Taurus, and we have the sun, Mercury, and Mars in the sign of Scorpio. So there will be more, even though our instinct, or at least the desire that we have, is moving towards other people and we're gathering information or wisdom through others, there's a lot of action and thought process that's happening in that personal house of yours. You're thinking about who you are, who you have become, how you speak, how you present yourself, what you are doing. You might feel quite busy at this time. All right, quite a lot of busyness paired with that, North Node in Aries and all this Mars and Mercury going on in your first house. This can be a little bit like, okay, I have a lot going on, and I need to be on it. Make sure that you're scheduling yourself well and you have enough time for self-care or meditation as well, depending on your priorities, right? And Jupiter retrograde in that Taurus house can be about you've met a lot of people already, you've expanded your social circle or your one-to-one connections, and now it is time to look at them again and see what you would like to change in that. Perhaps there are certain connections that are just not in alignment anymore for some or the other reason. It can even mean that the connections you've made so far, it's time to deepen those things. Learn them from the inside out. Learn your connections from the inside out. And if you're talking about in a business perspective, you've met your clients, you've exchanged services and whatnot, and now would be the time where you are going back to your previous customers and you're offering something different, and that can lead you to a lot of busyness and make you kind of out front. People are noticing you more, and it's all the more emphasized when you are reaching out to others. Now, Mars is absolutely strong in your sign, so you're going to feel quite passionate. You will come across more mysterious, and that alpha, the alpha figure is just going to be out loud, all right, whether you want it or not. So you can use that to your advantage. Of course, Scorpio is quite a transformative sign, so it is up to you what you're trying to create in your life. Now, Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio and is in a sextile angle to the house of Scorpio while sitting in Capricorn. Now, Pluto is moving direct. That is awesome because you can create the transformations that you want in your life from a deeper down level. Instead of feeling as though I want to make the change, but I don't know how to, I have no idea what's blocking me, etc., you are more likely to be like, I know what's stopping me. I just have to create the change. With Capricorn, it's a slow and steady movement. You have been experiencing Pluto in Capricorn since 2008, 2009. So you are going to recognize a similar pattern accordingly. The way that you think, the way that you connect with people in your local community, and so on, can be blessing the person that you are becoming. So, for example, shifting from a negative thinking mindset to a positive thinking mindset, practicing more gratitude, etc., can make you visibly feel different, be different, look different, and so on. Similarly, it can even be regarding your relationship with your coworkers, your siblings, or relatives as well. There can be certain travel plans that you make at this time, and if you're not planning any, you can do so if you want. Maybe not on the day of eclipse, but a little bit afterwards when it cools off relatively. That can be nice because it can bring you this immense amount of inspiration and motivation here, okay, with Mercury and Mars in your sign. Do look out for harsh speech, okay? You have this tendency of being so deep that you can understand what other people's deeper motivations are, and you don't even have to try very hard to understand that, right? So people don't expect this level of intensity from anybody. And with Mars being there, and Mars being the dominant one in the conjunction between Mars and Mercury, Mercury is just going to do what Mars is desiring to. Okay, so you might be intending to say something in a nice way, but it might come across to other people as, whoa, that was so much, that was high energy. I did not expect Scorpio to get so angry or to get so frustrated about this. And meanwhile, you're there like, no, I was actually I was just straightforward. What did I say wrong? It can be something like that. So just think about what you're saying and how other people might perceive it, if you care. Right? If you care, then care about that. But yeah, you have this energy to make a strong impact on your surrounding at this time, so use it wisely. So Sagittarius, let's talk about you. The first eclipse, the Libra Solar eclipse, is occurring in your 11th house of network, friendships, as well as your balance, justice, and just one-to-one communications and contracts in general. So this one is where the South Node is, and wherever the South Node goes is our comfort zone and also a space of resource, but we don't need to focus any more energy in that direction because we have already developed it quite well for right now. And there could be certain things that are being let go in this particular area. For example, you might lose touch with certain friends of yours, perhaps not permanently, but for the temporary time because you're busy with doing something else at this moment, or they have quite a lot of things going on and so forth. Like, for example, because the North Node is in that 5th house of yours, some of you could be getting pregnant or having children, and that could take you away from your social circle for just a bit. We do have Chiron in Aries as well, which is where the North Node is, and that falls in your 5th house of self-expression, creativity, children, and romance. So there might be certain fears and insecurities that you have been having in the past that are coming up for healing and discussion at this time. So you might have an important conversation with a friend, or an important idea or a thought you have connected to your hopes, dreams, and aspirations as to how you can translate something that you're naturally skilled in or are creative in into the outside world, and connect with like-minded people. In the background, we have Mars trining with Saturn. Mars is in Scorpio in your 12th house, and Saturn is in Pisces in your 4th house. Now, both of these houses are quite internalized and introspective, so there is likely going to be good feelings, good vibes that you are experiencing at this time, or at least your mood and your emotions are supporting you in your adventures or new developments that are occurring around you at this time. We have Venus, who's the ruler of this eclipse in the sign of Virgo, and that is in the top of your chart in the 10th house. So this indicates that you're getting some type of recognition. Perhaps you're stepping up as a leadership, as a leader. And if you already are a leader, you are being admired and appreciated for all the contributions, and in every way that you show up in the world, you're likely getting some type of recognition or acknowledgement at this time. You have a very special healing influence as well to your surroundings. Perhaps people are finding you more receptive, understanding, caring, service-oriented, meticulous, and analytical, and so on. On the flip side, Virgo can be quite overly critical or overly analytical to the point where it neglects the intuitive side of things. So be aware that yes, practicality is one side of the coin, but it's also important to note that your intuition is being engaged as well. But all in all, Venus being Lady Luck of all the planets in astrology, she's likely going to bring you some type of expansion or good opportunities in this area. You're also going to appear more appealing, attractive, and presentable as well. All right, now let's talk about the second eclipse, which is the Taurus Lunar eclipse. It's a time of the full moon, so it is quite introspective as well. It is more spiritual than the previous one. Now, this is occurring in Taurus, which is in your 6th house of work, your day-to-day routine, your habits and health, your lifestyle as well. So we have the moon here, and Jupiter is retrograde here, and Jupiter is your ruler, so it's important to note what the ruler is doing. So in the sign of Taurus, it is bringing you some type of, new work, perhaps connected with environment, perhaps something that is more sustainable, certain habits that need to be changed as per your changing changing belief systems or your surroundings are also going to come up at this time. The moon is known as the trigger. Okay, wherever the moon is going, that's the part of the chart that she tries to activate. So because it is quite close, not too close, it's not exactly conjunct, but Jupiter is a big planet and therefore it has a bigger orb. Any smaller planet that is around it is then immediately impacting the Jupiterian energy. So regardless, whatever expansions and growth you have been experiencing in your work life, in your day-to-day routines and so on, you have a chance to stop expanding at this time and really look at what you have covered so far. So let's say you have been busy, you have been on the grind day in, day out. This can be a time where you are able to pause for just a second and you're like, okay, how can I make this more efficient? How can I make this more comfortable for me, so that I don't feel like I'm always rushing or that I'm always on the go. Taurus is about momentum, but it also is about the comfort zone, and Jupiter is trying to help all of us, wherever Taurus is in our charts, to find that good balance. Also, there can be some type of practical wisdom that you gather through some previous experiences. Perhaps, your peers or your colleagues are not able to figure out the solution to a problem, but you might have encountered something similar in a past job or a past experience. And you're like, hey, okay, I can translate my skills over here. And that can lead to this sense of fulfillment and peace as well, that past experience is able to inform the future. You can feel more secure in general. Now also, it's very important to note that because it's a time of a full moon, the sun is opposite the moon. The sun is in Scorpio in the 12th house. That's also where Mercury and Mars are. Mercury and Mars are conjoining each other. They're quite close over here, so there can be this intense need or desire to sleep more, to rest more, but at the same time you might have a little bit of trouble sleeping. Maybe your nighttime routine needs to be changed in some way. Perhaps a cleansing or a healing ritual before going to bed can be helpful as well. A detox routine, cleansing routine, something like that can be quite beneficial. It can also be that writing your thoughts and feelings down in a diary, or just thinking about it after work or after your day is done. That can be quite beneficial. If not, there can be suppressed energy that builds up quite easily without realizing, and because the 12th house is so abstract and unconscious, we don't really actively work with it, and we're not so conscious of what is going on in that area. Right, this is the house that represents what happens in our dream state, right? We don't know that something in our waking life has been bothering our inner self so much, and then all of a sudden in the dream we see like an upsurge of water, or lots of dynamism and activity, and you're like, oh goodness, I'm still tired, right? So it's important to observe, yes, if you can gather some symbolism and synchronicities through your meditation, through your dreams and so on, note them down because they might have some significance. Apart from that, it's important to channel any suppressed energy. Try not to, keep too much to yourself. Share with others if you can, of course, and release the rest. Now, another thing to note, Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and it is in the sign of Capricorn, which forms a sextile relationship with Scorpio. Okay, now Capricorn is your second house of money and self-worth. So that connecting with that 12th house, it can be that if you have experienced any losses in the past, you're likely to get certain gains back, or it can be that whatever you're investing in can lead you towards more fulfillment and satisfaction. So there is a give and take connection with sextile, and you don't have to work on both sides of the chart at the same time. Instead, you can pick one and go with it. If you're trying to up your self-worth, go ahead and do that, and the Scorpio part will reveal itself, or vice versa. Work on the Scorpio part, be more meditative or connected with your spiritual side, and you will also find that your self-worth is rising. So that's where an opportunity is. Okay, Capricorn, let's talk about you. The first eclipse is the Libra Solar eclipse occurring on the 14th of October. Libra falls in your 10th house of occupation, your profession, the public status you have, your reputation, and just your leadership position as well as legacy in the world. So it doesn't matter job or not, the way that you're coming of service to the world, that's what's covered here. The south node is over here, which means that you have done a lot of work for your outside image or for the outside world, and it's time to focus more on the internal state, be it your inner self or your home and family environment. You might be thinking about legacies in general, but Aries north node indicates look at your ancestry first and then think about how you can carry certain traits forward and limit certain things that are not constructive so far. So it's a pretty deep transit. Whenever the 1st, 7th, 4th or 10th houses are being activated, it's a pivotal time for everyone involved. Okay, so take note of what is happening around this time, because there will be a continuation of these stories in the coming 1.5 years, actually 1 year from now. All right, what else to mention? We have Chiron in Aries, which is in that 4th house of home and family, and Chiron is retrograde. So there could be certain ancestral or DNA patterns or something connected with your home and family that could be causing fear, insecurity, a sense of woundedness that we don't want to delve into and we don't want to discuss. Okay, Chiron represents those things that we're like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't know how to deal with this, so I'm just at a loss. Those types of circumstances. But the good thing here is that Mercury is in Libra, which means that through our mind and interactions in the outside world or with like business contacts or image in the world and so on, we can get really some good thoughts as to what could be the root of a problem or what could be behind the insecurities that we face at this time. Okay, why, for example, why do we avoid home at this time? Okay, why are we looking to the outside for security and balance rather than looking inside, and so on and so forth. These are some deeper topics, of course, and there's no running away from that, unfortunately, through any eclipse. So take this as an opportunity because there's a lot of healing and rebalancing that can occur as a result of it, and it can actually help you achieve your long-term goals as well. Now, in the background, we have a blessing aspect, which is a trine aspect between Mars in Scorpio in your 11th house with Saturn in Pisces, who's retrograde in your 3rd house. Now, these are the social houses, and it can talk about, what your relationship is to your network, how are you connecting with your friends, and you can see that there is some type of deepening of the bond between you and a close friend or, a network that you connect with. You just feel like, yep, this is my tribe. These are my people. I want to orient my focus and energy towards them. You can also be receiving support through other people at this time through conversations. So this is why I was mentioning opening up, sharing with others can also be a beneficial thing for you. There was something else. Yes, Mars is pretty strong over here in the sign of Scorpio. So any attention and flow that you want to put towards your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, your long-term goals in general, that is going to be quite beneficial for you at this time, because you have Saturn, even though it's not, in a very strong position like it would be in Capricorn or Aquarius, it is still serving a specific purpose while being in the zodiac, right? So when it is in Pisces here for you, it can be that you are trying to see how you can express yourself better or what type of mindset shifts are going to be more beneficial for you. Your intuition could be sharpening because you're working on it. And when Saturn is retrograde, it can be that you're restructuring certain things within your schedule, travel plans, or other commitments and promises you might have made, because you're sensing that there are more things that you want to be exploring with regards to your dreams and aspirations. Now, Venus, the ruler of this eclipse, is in the sign of Virgo, which is in your 9th house. So that's a beneficial house for you because it forms a good angle to your sign. 1st and the 9th houses are all about the self-expansion, broadening of horizons, learning about different cultures, going to different places, and just this sense of worldliness and diversity, as well as it opens up to healing modalities, which are a little bit more spiritual in nature. For example, how do you connect to religion? How do you connect to spirituality? How do you connect to your own higher self? So there can be some mentor figures that are beneficial for you as a result of this energy. It can even be that that you have some type of opportunity or luck surrounding you to move abroad or go abroad for a specific period of time, and you find that as an eye-opening experience, or at least a pleasant experience, right? Now, the next eclipse is the Taurus Lunar eclipse. This is a lot more introspective and spiritual in its tone in general. This is occurring on the 28th of October. That is also in a fellow Earth sign, and it falls in your 5th house of self-expression, creativity, romance, and children. So it's important to note we have the moon here as well as Jupiter in retrograde over here. And in the opposite house in Scorpio, we have the Sun, Mercury, and Mars. And Mercury and Mars are conjoining each other. But because Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, it is going to have the higher say when it comes to this conjunction. So let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. For you, it is going to feel as though there is an instinctual need to express yourself better than you have done before in order to create self-expansion or an improvement of security and self-worth. It can be that you're going over your priorities regarding your children or towards your inner child. It can be that your children are going through a bit of a revision themselves to see what their ideals are, what their connections are towards spirituality and religion. So there's a lot of rethinking and recalibration with regards to the bigger topics in mind. And the moon being there is just making it a lot more personal. If you believe in some other religion, all of a sudden, for example, right, it's going to be a big shift in how you think, how you see the world, the community that you connect with, what brings you security, how do you understand your childhood now, what would you teach your children, and so on and so forth. There are larger implications based on the thoughts that you're having at this time. Now, with Mercury and Mars being together in that 11th house, there can be this burst of energy and activity that's happening towards your hopes, dreams, and aspirations if you're taking action towards them, or it can be that your social life is just quite busy at this time. It can be your friends going through an intense time, dynamic time. Perhaps they're going through a lot of changes themselves, or a healing journey, purging, cleansing journey at this time, and they could be quite communicative, and you speaking with them can give you some ideas too, or you might have some type of advice to offer based on your past experience, because Jupiter is retrograde, that can help someone else out. That can be super inspiring to others, and it is also likely that you are seen as someone inspiring because of your energy, your drive, the words that you say, the way you present yourself. There is this magnetism and gravitas in terms of your social presence. We have Pluto, who's the modern ruler of Scorpio, in the sign of Capricorn, in your sign, and it is moving direct. Of course, it has been oscillating between Capricorn and Aquarius for a little bit, but at this time it is in Capricorn and direct, which is forming that opportunity angle with Scorpio, right? So if you work on the Scorpio side of the chart, that is, following your goals, or following, or connecting with people, like-minded people, and so on, or you are working on yourself, your self-development, personal growth, upgrading, etc. Either way, you are going to feel benefits in the other side of the chart. So if you're working on the Scorpio side, you will feel benefits in the Capricorn side. If you're working on the Capricorn side, you will feel the benefits in the Scorpio side. But there needs to be some action that is taken. It's not a trine, so it's not an automatic blessing. It's not an instant resolution. There needs to be some initiation. For example, you might need to reach out to a friend in order to gain the benefits that I talked about. Or you might need to look inward at this time in order to gather more intel about what your true goals are, or who your real tribe is, and so on, depending on your individual case. Okay, Aquarius, so the first solar eclipse, which is a Libra eclipse occurring on the 14th, falls in your 9th house of expansion, your contracts, justice, the legal system, your foreign cultures, immigration, visas, and citizenship as well. It also houses your belief systems, your religious upbringing, or your social conditioning, as well as your views towards spirituality. So that's coming up here, and the South Node is here too, which indicates that there might be certain beliefs being let go, or certain contracts that you're closing out in order to begin something new. And this can also indicate that you're moving away from traveling abroad or thinking about very big picture topics, and rather orienting towards the smaller details of life, where the North Node is in the sign of Aries. So the eclipse here is forming a loose conjunction, so it's not really close together, but it is still within the same house and in a considerable distance from the new moon itself, which is Mercury. Now, Mercury in Libra can be quite diplomatic. It is the natural justice system and, is the lawmaker, so makes the new rules, or it implements certain strategies in order to carry out better balance and justice to the whole system. Now, Chiron is right opposite Mercury in the sign of Aries and is retrograde at this time, which indicates that there might be certain mindset shifts that you're going through, and you might be interacting with certain people in your immediate environment who are in need of some help. They are wounded people, insecure people, or something of that sort, who are disadvantaged or have been affected wrongly in their society, in their vicinity. And there might be some thoughts you have with regards to how to, create more social equality or justice over here. Okay, that there might be some important conversations you have with higher up officials or, guides and mentors, authority figures, etc., that can be quite illuminating about the plights of the real world. Or it can even be the vice versa, as the case that you experience in your local environment certain things that are just not working well, or in your mindset that are not conducive to growth, and you look outward towards, bigger the past experiences of your guides and mentors and so on, to learn from their experience. It is still going to be more so oriented towards your personal mindset, your personal environment, regardless of which way you're acquiring this help. Now we have a trine in the background, which is Mars and Scorpio with Saturn and Pisces. Now Scorpio is your 10th house, so that rules your public image, your status, reputation. How do you come of service to the world? What personality are you showcasing when you meet someone generally? And Pisces falls in your 2nd house of personal finances, self-worth, values, and priorities. So you're looking at how your work is providing you value, or how much finances are you getting through the effort you put into your external environment. And because of this trine here, you're quite happy with the results, or you're looking towards cultivating more, efficiency, or more, boundaries of, how to manage your finance, or how to bring more fulfillment in your life, in your environment. It can be that you're purchasing something that brings you joy. It can be something for spiritual purposes, but it can be something creative as well. Your intuition is going to be pretty strong here. People might think that you just know, you have a knack for knowing, but it's more so that it is something that you feel from the inside out, or it is something that you've dealt with in the past, and therefore you are wiser for whatever circumstance that's coming up with this eclipse here. Now Saturn is retrograde, so there can be some restructuring of your finances as well for the better, and you might be quite driven and ambitious towards your goals and aspirations in life. Actually, your more tangible goals of, this is the amount I want to reach in a year, or this is the kind of person I want to be in a year, or 2 years, 3 years, whatever. So this is your legacy, your goals, and your ambitions in general. Now the ruler of this eclipse is Venus, and she's sitting in your 8th house of shared resources and intimacy as well, fears, shadows, insecurities, things that need to be transformed, and so on. Now Venus is Lady Luck, and she wants to bring growth and flourish, prosperity to whichever part of the chart she goes into. In the sign of Virgo, she can take a little bit of this meticulous nature into her. So evaluating how much are you getting back from your loans, how much are you investing, what value are you getting through your relationships, is there enough intimacy within connections? If not, where can there be more quality that can show up? Improving the health of your inner self, and also doing some shadow work, some healing modalities, can be esoteric in a way, but can bring you some type of peace and blessing too. These things can be quite helpful during this time. Even though Venus is not directly affecting the eclipse itself, aspect wise, it is still in a position, and wherever she goes, she's able to help, and she's not in retrograde, she's not weakened as such. She just has a different flavor than what she's naturally used to. But regardless, the efforts that you put in, or the blessings that you feel at this time coming around, they're going to be more pronounced as the month goes by. And by the time you hit the 2nd eclipse, you will feel more of the blessings here, because the second one is a Taurus eclipse, which is a fellow earth sign. Now Taurus is in your home home and family environment, your ancestry, your roots, and your inner self. So that and Virgo are at a trine angle to one another, meaning that they're helping each other out. There is some positive resolution or conclusion that happens around these topics of, where is your home, what are you passing on, what have you gotten from your past, and if there have been certain ongoing issues, then this would be a time there that you are finally breaking out of a cycle, or you're completing this lesson, or an experience is coming to a close, essentially. And we have the moon and Jupiter in retrograde in Taurus. So it can be that there might have been some expansions with regards to your home, family, traditions, and your beliefs around culture and local community and so on. And this is the time when you can absorb all of the changes that have happened before, or all of the expansion that has already occurred. For example, if you have a new member into the family and you're not very familiar with that person, this might be a time where you can get this opportunity to sit down, have a chat, and get to know one another. It can be that you have expanded your home. Perhaps you had a 1-floor home and now you have a 2-floor home. So with Jupiter going retrograde, you might have to pause a little bit on the expansion and be like, wait, let me see, where do I want this to go? What is my vision for my home and family? What is my vision for my ancestral line and my personal self? What would bring me that comfort, happiness, and joy? And also important to note, because it's a time of a full moon, the sun is right opposite the moon. The sun is in Scorpio along with Mercury and Mars. Mercury and Mars are conjoining one another, and because Mars is ruling Scorpio, it has a higher say in this conjunction. So Mercury is just going to follow along with what Mars is saying, and both of them can be quite research oriented and very focused and passionate in the sign of Scorpio. So it's important to note, where is the passion headed? Okay, that's the tricky bit. That's the tricky one, because otherwise it can come across as aggressive or harsh speech or harsh criticism, even if you don't mean it to come out in that way. Okay, there is that tendency to have that happen, especially if certain actions or speech is instantaneous, impulsive in any way. So take note of your thoughts around this time, of where are your ambitions and desires calling you, but maybe the decision doesn't need to be made just yet. Pause for a little bit, wait for this thing to cool down a bit, maybe, the beginning of November or so, the second week preferably, and onwards, it's just going to lighten up a little bit more. But yes, this can definitely bring you plenty of insights as to what you are actually wanting to create in your personal life and what you want to be presenting as in the outside world. Another thing to note is that Pluto, who is the ruler of Scorpio, is in Capricorn in your 12th house. So the Capricorn and Scorpio are sitting at a sextile angle, and sextiles are about opportunity, but some action needs to be taken. For example, you might have this desire to cultivate a latent talent of yours and capitalize on that, but you need to dig into it and you have to bring it up in experience in order to capitalize on that. So there is still a give and take dynamic. So if you're let's say not focused on your career at this time, but rather want to do some self-exploration, understanding your spiritual self, and do some healing and so on and so forth, and creating that transformation from the inside out is also going to give you certain ideas of who you are in the world now. Perhaps certain chapters are closing out in your life. Of course, this depends on what experience you're having individually, but it can be that certain experiences are coming to a close and you're about to embark on a whole new journey. So what does that mean for your career? What does that mean for you? What's your status now? Where do you want it to head? Scorpio is all about the transformation, and Taurus is all about that stability. So what is that right balance? This is a real thinker, this one. This full moon is totally quite introspective. And because it's the last Taurus eclipse we're going to have for quite some time, it's also going to be quite a pivotal one as well. So Pisces, let's talk about you. The first eclipse is falling in your 8th house of shared resources, intimacy, fears, and shadows, as well as your hidden talents, your subconscious, and your psyche. So we have the South Node over here, which indicates that there are certain things to be let go. For example, certain fears need to be let go, or certain dependencies you have on others need to be let go or evaluated in order to find better balance. If you're depending on someone else for your income or for your stability, energy, this can be a time that you're feeling more motivated to move towards something of your own. So with the North Node being in Aries and also Chiron being there, you might be looking into different methods of increasing your income or finding better financial balance in order to repair certain damages or insecurities you may have from the past. Now, Mercury is in Libra as well. Mercury is the planet of communication and short distance travel, contracts as well. So something related with shared resources or assets could come up in your thoughts. It can also be some healing modality that you are practicing that brings about certain interactions or relationships that you find are meaningful or profound. They help you let go of a part of yourself you might have been struggling with, and also release attachment with materialistic endeavors. Now, Libra, it wants to find balance and harmony no matter where it is seated in our chart. And in this house, it can indicate that we need to transform the hidden talents that we have and stop using them perhaps for, only for other people, and instead also use them for ourselves too. So if you are someone who cares for other people and is very self-sacrificing, this can be a time that you're thinking, okay, how can I care for myself just as much as I care for others? And that itself can be a very healing realization and experience. In the background, we have Mars in Scorpio and Saturn in your sign, and Saturn is retrograde and they're trining. So this indicates that there is a harmonious aspect and that there is some type of peaceful resolution, or at least good news and a sense of fulfillment that is surrounding us at this time. Now, Scorpio falls in your ninth house of belief systems, religion, spirituality, conditioning, your mentors, and if you have any teaching or researching career, then it represents that as well. So you might be quite motivated and driven in that regard. You might be making certain plans for foreign travel. Certain immigration and visa procedures as well can be quite busy around this time, but because it's at a favorable aspect to your sign, it is likely that you have done the structures you needed to do in order to make this process go smoothly. Or it can be that you need to look to the past in order to restructure a way of thinking, being, or restricting, or the lack of restrictions upon yourself, so that you're able to reach the optimum level of satisfaction. For example, you have big goals and you have big ideals that you want to reach and you're very passionate about. But then Saturn here is like, yeah, but I don't know if I can do this. So with Saturn retrograde at this time, it might be more feasible to look at, well, how can I make it possible? At this rate, in this current moment, maybe everything is not as easy peasy as it thought it was, but perhaps there is something else I have not seen, or a different way that I can look into a same situation that is going to help me move towards my goals. Either way, Mars is wanting to keep on going. Okay, Mars does not want to just sit silently, no matter where it is. Even in the sign of Libra, Mars just keeps on going. And now let's talk about the ruler, Venus. And now it's the ruler of Libra, which is the eclipse here. And she's sitting in Virgo, which is your seventh house. So a partner or a partnership, your close relationship, one-to-one connections, romantic or business, they can be quite influential at this time. If you have your own business, this can be talking about having good relationships and good feedback that you hear from others about your work ethic, your presentation, your quality, and the messages that you have to offer. If we are talking about this in a romantic context, it can be that you're having a very nice time with your partner and you feel quite secure within the relationship, and therefore any toxic dependencies within that connection can be melting away. Now this Venus is not directly related to the Libra part of the chart. It's a neutral influence at this time, but whatever happens around in this time of 14th of October, you're likely going to feel more benefits as the time goes on. So around the 28th, you will feel a lot more benefits from Venus, because we have a Taurus lunar eclipse on the 28th of October. That is your third house of communication, your colleagues, your local space, siblings and relatives. Any documentation and attention to detail type of work that you have to do as well comes under this. Now Taurus and Virgo, where Venus is, they are friends. Both of them are earth signs, so both of them get along quite well, and Venus over here is able to directly bring certain resolutions of ongoing concerns. So if you have been trying to build a certain contact and they have just been avoiding you, for example, this might be the time you're like, well, you know what, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, otherwise it's not. not forget about it, and that gives you a sense of peace. But the fact that you detached from a certain situation can open up new doors and opportunities. So newer connections, newer contacts can come up. In ongoing circumstances, there can be certain level of clarity that comes in that brings you a sense of stability and peace in your mindset. Now, let's see. We have Moon and Jupiter retrograde in the sign of Taurus. Now, Jupiter is about that spiritual body of ours, how we connect with our mentors, our spiritual guides, how do we follow our own moral compass, our ideals as well. What is our belief system regarding certain things? And in this house, we're talking about what's your big picture mindset. Do you think about the future? Do you not think about the future? How much in detail do you look at that? What are your beliefs about your goals? Do you think you can achieve your priorities? Do you think it's not really possible, but it's good to have a mind map? Whatever your beliefs are regarding all of these topics and things even coming from your local environment, those are going to be more under the microscope around this time. Now, it's not closely conjunct the eclipse, but it is around and about over there. And even though it's loose, Jupiter is a big planet and it has a larger orb to take into account. So Moon, being a smaller planet, is then going to be influenced by this Jupiterian energy. Also, another thing to note is that we have lots of planets right in the opposite sign of Scorpio, which is the Sun, which is causing that full moon, right? The opposition between the Sun and the Moon. So we have the Sun, Mercury, and Mars. Mercury and Mars are closer together. They're forming a conjunction at this time in Scorpio. Now, Mars is the ruler of Scorpio, and therefore in this conjunction, it is going to have a higher say. And that means that Mercury is going to follow along with what Mars is desiring or directing in your life at this time. Now, Mars is a transformer and has high passion and ambition in this zodiac. It is very research oriented and it can be very, very laser focused. If it wants to achieve something, it will make it happen. Where there's a will, there's a way, right? And Mars is best able to exhibit this behavior in Aries as well as Scorpio. Now, Mercury is over there, which indicates that you have a very intuitive, perceptive, observant mindset. You might be if you have a teaching or a mentoring type of role, you might be coming across as more appealing, more magnetic. Other people might be coming to you for guidance, and they might think as though you have some deeper insights and as though your problem solving skills are quite next level. On the other side, if you are studying in your higher education, you might find yourself very driven and motivated towards whatever it is that you are doing. No matter what the circumstances for you personally, this shows that there is high ambition and high passion, provided that this energy is not used impulsively or rashly, because that's when Mars goes into its detriment. It can get quite obsessive in this energy, so if you're not able to figure out something, you might find it very, very hard to pull away from that problem. Let's say you're solving a math problem and you're like, this is a head scratcher, I just don't get it. You might not move for the coming, hours, and people might be calling you, hey, let's go out, let's have a fun time, let's chat with friends and whatnot. And you're like, no, I first need to solve this and then I will come out. So that would be a flaw over here, because it's also important to go away from the problem and look at it again, because your perspective is then going to be different. But Scorpio finds it quite hard to pull away its focus. So that's something to keep in mind. There are pros and cons. It's very situation dependent. I can't really directly say that this is going to be bad. Just, look out for these types of tendencies. One thing I will say to look out for is because it's in that travel house, the foreign travel house, that you make sure that there are no accidents, in the sense of, make sure you have your passport ready if you need that, or that your documents are on point and that you're going well in advance, no rash driving, no impulsivity, essentially, okay? And then that will just make sure that you're thorough, you're well researched, and you're on your way to, whichever country you're headed towards. All right. Now, another thing to note is that we have Pluto, who's the modern ruler of Scorpio, in the sign of Capricorn. It's moving direct at this time. And Capricorn and Scorpio form a sextile relationship, which is like a friendship aspect. You need to reach out to one another in order to get the benefits of that connection. It's not automatic and taken for granted that it's just going to always be there. So if you reach out to your friendship circle, for example, and, you have a problem that you're dealing with, they might be able to offer you certain insights, simple little insights that you could not have thought of at that time, and that really helps you out with whatever problem you're stuck with. Or vice versa can be true as well, that you're working in your research area, or you're trying to expand your mindset. Perhaps you're learning a foreign language, and it would really help you to connect with someone from that specific culture, and you just look for I don't know, somewhere on Facebook, Instagram, whatever, wherever it is, you might just come across someone who is of that culture that you're interested in. So it needs your messaging, it needs your contact towards them in order to continue that friendship forward. But either way, there is that chance of this opportunity bringing you something greater and a greater sense of peace and stability as well. Regarding your hopes, dreams, and aspirations as well, both of these houses are talking about the big picture view. It's not so much about planning from, start to finish, 5 years, each year plan, what's going on here. Not so much like that, but rather, what do you envision for yourself? What are your beliefs that you want to carry forward with? What are your ideals you choose to cultivate? As well as, what are your aspirations in life? Would you like to be someone who helps the world, someone who does engineering, someone who is humanitarian? What is that aspiration, which is more of that global topic, as opposed to, a senior researcher, which is more of a title, right? So that's something to think about. Now, this eclipse is quite internal as well, so it really offers some introspective benefits. If you have time, then tune inwards, listen to your guides. If you connect with them, or just meditate with yourself, I think that's already going to lead to lots of benefits. So that's what I have for this eclipse reading. I hope all the messages resonated, that they help you out. More importantly, I will also be posting the October related videos, the astrology readings, as well as the tarot readings, so watch out for those. I will not go so much in depth about eclipses in that, but I will be covering what else is going on throughout the month, what planets are changing signs, what's the general flavor, what's the North Node doing. It's pretty active this month, so we need to talk about that as well. So I will catch you some other time. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts as well. It's always lovely to hear back from you guys. I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.